Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode here at the Damage Report. Today is a Tuesday, and the fun things about Tuesdays and Thursdays here at the Damage Report is that you never know who's gonna be on the show with me. We have this awesome roster of people from all different areas of media and journalism, politics, all that. We got a very exciting guest for you today, joined once again on the Damage Report by Wosny Lambre. Wosny, how's it going?
I'm good. How's everything going, my brother?
I've been, as good as, it could be worse. It has been worse.
Absolutely.
It will be worse in the future. Anyway, we're very lucky to have you. Wosny, if you're not familiar with him, is a culture writer, NBA writer, sports analyst, podcaster, Twitch streamer. Am I missing anything? I know that you have a lot of hats.
No, it's just, that's just my West Indian nature to have 20 different jobs, Rent is always due on the first, everybody. So you got to stay conscious of that at all times.
Exactly. You know what? Later on this week, we need to return to that topic because the looming eviction crisis isn't going away. The media hasn't been talking about that much. We're gonna return to that later this week. Anyway, so you raise a good point. Thank you everybody for being here, regardless of what platform you're on. If you're watching on the members app, thank you so much. If you're on Twitch, we like that too. YouTube, how's it going? Thank you for being here. Please hit the like button, share the stream so the people know we're live. And as you're probably aware, we like to get to know what you all are talking about, what concerns you have, if you have any questions, anything like that. So later on in the show, during our breaks, we'll be responding to your super chats, tweets, comments, Twitter stuff, all that. And so feel free to send those in and we will get back to you about that. Through the course of the 90 minutes that we have for TDR now, we're gonna be talking about a hell of a lot. Starting off with a deep dive, necessarily, regrettably, into the backlash on critical race theory. We've got Marjorie Greene apologizing for things that she said. We'll see if she has earned forgiveness. We've got a bit of Obama. We got Reality Winner being released from prison. We got crack versus cocaine sentencing. We got a lot of stuff. So hang on to your butts. We're about to launch into this. Wosny, you ready to do this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then let's start it off. If you've attended any school board meetings, PTA meetings, anything like that around the country over the past couple of months, there's a chance you've seen something like this.
Just because I do not want critical race theory taught to my children in school does not mean that I'm a racist, damn it.
Okay, so that she's going through a time. Thank you to the right and to Fox News for making that woman a wreck over critical race theory being taught to her kids in a school that doesn't teach critical race theory to their kids anyway. There's a lot of problems here, and we're gonna hit a few different angles on this. But you need to understand that critical race theory has become this massive thing that right-wing politicians have been talking about, Fox News has been talking about, and because of that, it is rapidly eclipsing, let's see, the need to rig future elections and the demonization of trans youth as the most important issue in right-wing minds. We've got a lot that we're gonna get into on this, but Wosny, what do you make of this nationwide craze against critical race theory?
I'm honestly a bit stupefied because I couldn't really tell you what critical race theory is. Like, I don't know what that means, right? Like, are they gonna teach African American studies in classrooms all across America? I find it hard to believe that that would be the case. And a lot of it just feels like we don't want white people from the past to be demonized. And so, because that demonization will somehow be transferred onto me. I don't get the paranoia, the just honestly, like you said, the craze around the topic of, I guess talking about race in a more frank manner to students across the country. I don't get that. It's strange to me.
Yeah, you are handicapped, Wosny, by not being terrified of reality. Some people are very scared of the things that are, and they would very much like them to not be that way. But if they're gonna have to be that way, please don't tell me about it. Anyway, we're gonna get to a definition of critical race theory, but really fast, I wanna give you a little bit more of the sort of thing that you saw with that opening video, which is these meetings are going on. Hundreds of parents are flocking to tell school administrators to stop teaching things that they are very much not teaching. And you hear things like you did in that video. You hear things like from Kids First Alliance organizer Lindy Ford, who said, we need to be colorblind and we really need to have more unity. This is going to divide our children. You know, it's a great thing when you start off by saying that we need to be colorblind when it comes to race. I bet she even has black friends too. Now, also, if you're not from America, I don't know if this is a thing in other countries, but there's shortcuts to knowing if an organization is absolute BS. And unfortunately, kids being in the name is one of those things. Family too. If those are in your organization's name, there's a chance you might not be serious about this. But anyway, let's see. We have a demonstrator for one of these meetings, Karen Prey, who said, teach character in school, teach wisdom, don't teach race. That's racism. Wait, so some things are racism, apparently. You think the teaching of this is racist. Can we teach about that? Because you say it's racism. Shouldn't people know about this? This is apparently really serious. And let's see, we have a woman testifying in Greenwich, in my home state of Connecticut, saying critical race theory and anti-racism teaching practices are racist, hateful, abusive, and divisive at their core. There is no place for this in our schools. So teaching anti-racism is racist. Okay, now the definition. So what is critical race theory? Well, one definition provided by the Washington Post is that critical race theory is a decades-old academic framework that holds that racism is systemic, embedded in government policies and laws that are evident in any serious examination of American history. Critics say that racism is the work of individual bad actors, and they say teachers are improperly injecting race into the classroom. Teachers say it is impossible not to discuss race in any honest discussion or lesson about American history. So it is an analytical framework. It is a lens through which to look at history, saying that racism has been core to our country, which you would think hundreds of years of slavery as the backbone of our economy would sort of make clear, and Jim Crow and all of that. But that's not clear to a lot of people. It needs to be said, and critical race theory is one way that some grad programs look at race. Wazi, not every elementary school, almost none of the kids that these parents supposedly have ever been taught anything like this, but they're very worried about the US government being tarnished as having ever done anything racist, about race ever having been, racial bias being built into our economy, into real estate, into education or law or the Supreme Court. They're worried about those sorts of things. Oh, Wazi, I think you might have muted yourself.
Whoops.
What were you saying?
I said, I think the strangest thing to me is it feels like they just want to be able to feel good about people like Abraham Lincoln and Thomas Jefferson, right? It's like these guys are our white heroes from the past, and I don't want to be robbed of the good feelings and just the general positivity that I feel towards these historical figures. And it's funny to me because I'm like, what do you really have to do or in common with even Abraham Lincoln, random white person in Nebraska? Like, your parents, your forefathers probably came from Ellis Island, from Ireland somewhere, or name any other European country. They have no relation to these guys in any meaningful way. So I don't know. I don't get the sort of temptation to want to hold on to these guys as part of your core identity as an American. And I also don't understand why we can't just say people made mistakes in the past, and we're not gonna do the same thing. We're just gonna be better at it. Not that those guys are a specific evil or whatever. They made bad choices. We're gonna make better ones.
Yeah.
Keep it pushing. I don't know why that's so hard for people to say. It's just there's just this strange self-identity wrapped in, you have to believe that the white men of the past were pure and amazing to feel good about yourself. It's just strange to me.
I don't get it. All these parents say, how could you tell my kid that they're like their original sin was that they're white, it'll ruin, and we have to protect them. So here's the thing. I accept all the realities about the massacres, the economic degradation, about Jim Crow and trying to dilute and eliminate political representation for any non-white group, all that. I accept all of that. So why am I still able to be proud of myself and my achievements? Why do I still hold my head? Shouldn't I be ruined by this? We're taught by these crying moms and dads at these meetings. Apparently, it doesn't have to ruin you. Some might say understanding history, having a grasp on reality might actually strengthen you in some way, perhaps psychologically, perhaps emotionally. I don't know. It seems like you should be able to look at the world and get what it actually is. But some disagree. And they're willing to go to extreme lengths over it. So let's turn to our next bit on this. The furor over the non-teaching of critical race theory has gotten so bad that it's not enough now for these right-wing parents to go to meetings and complain about it. They now want surveillance, state surveillance of teachers. A Nevada group called the Nevada Family Alliance, see, family's in the name, has proposed putting cameras on teachers to stop them from teaching critical race theory. The Alliance's suggestion for teachers to wear body cameras followed frustration from parents about the quote, lack of transparency by teachers promoting a social justice narrative. Every day, the founder of that group says, we are told of another incident where a teacher is violating the privacy of a student or contradicting the lessons taught by parents at home. So creating a record that could be viewed by appropriate parties if necessary might be the best way to urge teachers to stick traditional teaching. And man, I don't know, does like a shiver up your spine at traditional teaching? How dare a teacher contradict what parents have said? Here's the thing about that. Most parents don't know jack about history. That's why we send our kids to schools, to be taught by teachers who've actually learned this stuff. But Wozni, they want to put the cameras on the teachers. So it's just a little, you can just see the little faces. And when, like you mentioned Tulsa, the little faces are like, no, and then that's evidence in a court proceeding.
Yeah, it's funny because these are the freedom people, right? Freedom, liberty. This is the land of the free, America. Don't tread on me, et cetera, et cetera. It's the same crowd that does that yet wants to surveil teachers. Again, I just don't think this is that critical or that hard to understand. Even something, because we get these buzzwords that come and they go. Now the buzzword of the moment is systemic racism. It's pretty easy to teach to even second graders, like we're all basically the same. And if a group of people are getting outcomes at a disproportionate rate, we know that there's something else going on because we're all basically the same. We're all human beings. We all bleed when you cut. There's no there's no science behind any of the race stuff. It's just categories that we've made up. And so when we see outcomes that are disproportionate for a certain group of people, then we know something's happened systemically and we probably need to do something to address it. It doesn't mean your mommy and daddy don't love you. That doesn't mean you need to cry every single day because your skin is white. And people 300 years ago who happen to have the same skin color as you, perpetuated some awful atrocities. Like, this isn't hard. This is so simple. Even children can understand it. And again, it just shows you what could happen when people are propagandized and sort of taught to be idiots via hate radio on the right wing or Fox News. Like when you're constantly consuming this stuff, it can turn you to even dumber people than even little kids, right? Like that's just what this shows you to me.
I love the shot at little kids. Look, they're pretty dumb too, bear in mind. You're not wrong though. Yeah, so a couple points. To your point about the hate radio and Fox and all that, it's 100% true. Like if you're conservative and you're watching this, I just beg of you to see reason. Not on everything, that's not gonna happen. But on this one thing, if you think that Tucker Carlson gives a damn about what some public school is teaching kids, you're crazy. Dude's rich, his kids are not only are his kids never gonna go to those schools, they're never gonna have a serious extended conversation with a person who's been to one of those schools. He and all of the other rich MFers who are getting you worked into a frenzy about this don't care about it at all. But I'm sure they're thrilled at how successfully it has taken over millions of right wingers. They're pursuing their economic interests while dangling stuff in front of you. They jangle their keys and then you run to go attack the teaching of critical race theory. By the way, in terms of dumb people, really fast, one more graphic here. The Karen England, the founder of that Nevada Family Alliance, says, we expect that the teachers unions will reject this proposal immediately for the body cameras, but we should ask, what do they have to hide? That's actually a good point. The only reason you could not want to have a body camera on you is because you're hiding something. And I think that's a standard that we can apply to other people. Hey, Karen England, put on a body camera all day and stream it to the internet. If you don't want to do that, what do you have to hide? What are you doing that is so terrible that you wouldn't want your entire privacy to be violated? So that busybody parents are constantly asking you about everything that you do and you say. It's so stupid. And the thing that bothers me the most is not that it's stupid, but that I'm sure a dumb point like that is just accepted as like such wisdom by these parents that want to control what people learn. Okay, with that, we're gonna take our first break. When we come back, we've got a lot more to get to, including there are at least 2 different congresswomen who are facing censure resolutions in the House for very different reasons. We're gonna break down these 2 cases after this. Okay, everyone, let's see what's going on out there in the audience. First of all, thank you to Black Malibu Barbie and Biff McKeldin for becoming tier 1 YouTube members. Thank you for that. You get access to all of the emojis. Hope they're fun. Bernie's effing Mittens sent in a super chat saying, I love you, Waz. That's out there.
We love you too.
Forbesilla says, if Waz is still single, I'd like to apply for the opening.
Very single, reach out to me. Big Waz on social media.
Exactly. Anyway, let's see. Amanda W says they don't care about rights, they want to be righteous. Yeah, it seems to me like a weird strategy. So their thing is, how dare you say that government, society, all of that has been biased in a systemic way against black people, and we're going to prove how wrong you are about that by having multiple state legislatures outlaw even a discussion about whether it's true. Like we're gonna have a systemic response to shut down your BS claim that there's systemic racism. But there's no respect for irony anymore in the United States. Elizabeth Jacobs says, if talking about racism makes you uncomfortable, then you might just be a racist. Yeah, I didn't want to get into it in the video because that video of like the mom that we showed you, I'm sure she's gotten spread all over the internet or everything. But like, yeah, if you're breaking down about the teaching of racism, it doesn't mean that you're a hardcore racist or anything, but it doesn't mean that you don't have any growth to do, I think that seems fair. There's probably a little bit of room for evolution. Anyway, Super Gruppo says, just have the teachers do what the cops do and forget to turn it on while teaching critical race theory, then blame it on technical malfunctions. That's a good point. I love the idea that like some teacher is gonna like teach them about like, the race massacres and stuff like that. And then Rahm Emanuel will like hold on to the footage for 9 months before he releases it. Probably doubt that's gonna happen. Anyway, Haley Noel says, if they want body cams on teachers, they're gonna need to fund schools like police departments. So no worries, y'all. That's a good point, actually. Economicon says, ERCOT in Texas is threatening rolling blackouts. Good thing the snowstorm blackouts were only due to extreme cold weather. Yeah, Wazzy, I don't know if you heard about this, but they're telling people to avoid using power if not necessary. Don't use AC if it's not necessary, because otherwise the grid might go down like it did during the winter in Texas. Okay, let's see, over on Twitch, thank you to When There Are 15 for subscribing for the 7th month, appreciate that. Choga for 4 months, Dragon Penny for 5, Dean O'Boyer for 9 months, thank you for that. Late Bloomer gifted a tier 1 sub, and Z Huddle did as well. Thank you to both of you for being such great ambassadors for the channel. Tell me what to put, says John. What are your thoughts on the recall effort against George Gascon here in LA County? I had a guy in the Nextdoor app tell me that not recalling Gascon was as bad as teaching critical race theory. I'd love to hear your take on this recall effort. I think it's another progressive being attacked for simple reforms. Bingo, tell me what to put. No, I was walking into Home Depot and I was stopped as I was going in. Do you support the recall of George Gascon? And I just said no and kept walking. I almost got into it, but there's just nothing to be gained by that. Yeah, they don't like progressive DAs. They don't want that. These are people who support the cops. They support the status quo. They want people in jail. I'm not going to convince these activists, but I don't know. Recall efforts in the best of times are difficult to make good on, so we'll have to see. Anyway, with that, more to get to after this. Okay, so much more news to get to. Before we jump into it though, I do want to let you know that as every day, we are in week 2 of an awesome 8-week run of Dr. Rashad Richey's show, Indisputable, which is available to watch at youtube.com/indisputable_TYT. And I know what you're thinking, wait, but when? We've made it as simple as possible. Right after the damage report. Damage report goes until the 30-minute mark. We take a little break and then there you go. Indisputable, Dr. Rashad Richey. It's gonna be awesome. He's got Ben Cohen of Ben and Jerry's. Ben Cohen's obviously was a big Bernie Sanders surrogate. Josh Bernstein is a conservative host who he's gonna debate. I don't know exactly what they're gonna talk about, but it's gonna be awesome. And Adrienne Lawrence is once again going to be Dr. Rashad Richey's co-host. So it's gonna be an awesome show. You're not gonna wanna miss it. And with that, let's jump back into the news. It's been a couple of weeks since Representative Marjorie Greene compared the wearing of masks to the Holocaust. That was rough at the time, and she actually got pushback on it, shockingly. She sort of apologized at the time. Now she's coming back with what she believes will be a better apology. Here's a bit of that.
Always want to remind everyone, I'm very much a normal person. And I think it's important for me to always be transparent and honest. And I just want to tell you all, I'm really, really lucky. I am blessed with amazing parents. And my dad just passed away in April. But I will say he taught me some great things. And one of the best lessons that my father always taught me was when you make a mistake, you should own it. And I have made a mistake and it's really bothered me for a couple of weeks now. And so I definitely want to own it. This afternoon, I visited the Holocaust Museum. The Holocaust there's nothing comparable to it. It happened and, over 6 million Jewish people were murdered. More than that, there were not just Jewish people, Black people, Christians, all kinds of children, people that the Nazis didn't believe were good enough or perfect enough. And the horrors of the Holocaust are something that some people don't even believe happened, and some people deny, but there is no comparison to the Holocaust.
Okay, so she is apologizing. She has been to the Holocaust Museum, so now she gets that it's really serious and everything. Waz, what do you think about her apology?
I guess, at least she's apologizing for something that she did that was clearly just out of line and more than anything, just idiotic, and it speaks to very directly to our current moment. I think, especially those on the other side, they hear things coming from quote unquote our side, John, that they think is our extreme, right? Like abolish the police, right? Like they're like, that's an extreme rhetorical frame. Now when we go for our turn, we gotta go extreme, right? And so wearing a mask at Walmart is now the same as being taken to a gas chamber. It's the same, John. It's the exact same thing. The mass killing of a persecuted group of people 6 million is the same as wearing a mask when you get beef jerky from 7-Eleven. It's the exact same thing.
There's no difference.
It's just ridiculous. Like some of this stuff, there's nothing interesting to say, John. Like I want to sound smart and interesting on your show because I want to entertain your audience. But how are you smart and interesting about a freaking lady comparing masks in public, sort of stores, et cetera, to mass genocide and killing? Like, how do you sound smart about that? This is just ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree. And yet we have an obligation to try, so I will. Yeah, you're right. Okay, so first of all, base level, she is apologizing once again. That is worth something. We're gonna evaluate how much it's worth based on other things that she said in that same press conference, but it's worth something. Not necessarily much for her, but I didn't think that she would be pushed into ever apologizing for anything that she said. So this is a bit of a win, if a minor one, for a world, a reality where there are sometimes, even sometimes, consequences for the insane things that you say. So that's good. I'm glad for that. That said, there's a few issues. So first off, if you have to start your statement with, I'm a normal person, are you though? Normal people don't talk like that, and you just did. Second of all, okay, so I get why in vague terms, she thought going to the Holocaust Museum and then talking about it would be a good idea, because when you say something that shows ignorance about a group, sometimes you'll sit down with people from the group or an expert or something like that. The thing is, not for the Holocaust. Everybody knows that that's really bad. Going to the Holocaust Museum is a great idea to learn more, not to learn that it's bad though. It's like I'm walking in the door, wonder what this is about. No, you're supposed to already get the core idea, and then extra layers of detail will be then wrapped about that. And I would also say, I question how much she really learned there. Because while she did say a couple of good things, like for instance, she mentioned 6 million people have been killed. She mentioned that it wasn't just Jewish individuals, but that also a number of other different groups were targeted as well. When you then say they did it because they thought those people weren't good enough, are you a child? Are you a child that's what you took? Well, they really didn't like those people weren't perfect, so that's the most simple. Anyway, she's trying to some extent. The thing about it though is that she said, I will own up to my mistakes, which is good. I think that people should do that. They should be rewarded in some fashion, when they do that. It's then immediately undercut by other stuff. So for instance, at that press conference, she was asked by Ryan Nobles if the experience would lead her to reject the disinformation spread by QAnon followers, some of which deny the Holocaust. She said in that thing that some people deny the Holocaust. She said she didn't know of what information was spread by Q followers. That's not true. That's not true at all. You were one of those Q followers. You uploaded popular videos that people who are obsessed with QAnon would watch. You know at least something about what they say, so you're lying there. She also refused to take back her comparisons between the Democratic Party and the Nazis. So an action of the Democratic Party and an action of the Nazis, she gets that she's not supposed to compare those things. But just calling them Nazis, she doesn't take that back. So the Holocaust is like nothing else. There can be no comparisons, but the people who did the Holocaust, oh no, compare away. No, totally, the Democrats are the Nazis at that point. She also refused to denounce Trump for saying that some of the people marching at Charlottesville were very fine people who are literal Nazis. So Waz, how much has she actually learned if she's not willing to take back those things?
Look, I hate to be a cynic here, but I don't think this apology was genuine. I don't know if I'm, going off on a limb there by suggesting that Marjorie Taylor Greene probably already knew that it was unconscionable to compare mask wearing to the Holocaust. Yeah, so I'm not surprised that her apology was bumbling and didn't seem genuine. That doesn't surprise me. And also it wouldn't surprise me that she wouldn't come out and directly denounce Donald Trump, because part of your brand as somebody you've already self-identified as a Q supporter, like that's just the Donald Trump cult. So why would a cult member come out and denounce the cult leader in public? That just would never happen. And I get reporters' jobs is to hold these people's feet to the fire, so to speak, and ask them the quote unquote tough questions. But I don't know, part of me wonders if taking any of these people seriously at all is part of the problem. Maybe nobody showing up to her rinky-dink press conference would have been the right thing to do. Although I know it's important that we document what our public figures are doing, or civil servants are doing. But the thing about the mask stuff, which is funny to me, because honestly, John, I don't like wearing masks. But like, if I'm at Ross's getting new underwear and the policy is to wear a mask, it's like, it's not a big deal to walk around that store for 15 minutes with a mask on, right? Yeah. Like, I just don't get it. Like when you don't have to, you just don't do it, right? And when you do, you suffer. You suffer for the brief moments that you walk through a restaurant, or you walk through some Target, or you do what, it's just the strangest things, right? I remember when they used to call us snowflakes, because we had the nerve to be offended by stuff like racism and sexism and homophobia. Now these fools can't wear masks for 30 seconds without crying about it. It's incredible to watch.
Oh, and we're gonna have so they cry about it. They also sometimes attack people. So we'll have that a little bit later on too. Really fast, you mentioned homophobia there. Someone pointed out in the YouTube chat, and I hope I didn't just miss it. She was listing the groups that the Nazis were hunting down and murdering by the millions. Did she mention the LGBTQ community? Because they were totally targeting the LGBTQ. It's weird. So weird. I guess she must have missed that section of the Holocaust Museum. Weird that she wouldn't want to mention that. But good point to the YouTuber with that. Okay, let's turn to the next aspect of this. Both Ilhan Omar and Marjorie Taylor Greene are potentially this week going to be the targets of censure resolutions. So they're going to be filed supposedly this week, admonishing them for marks that critics say were anti-Semitic or inappropriate. But two different women, two different remarks. So we've been talking about Marjorie Greene and her saying that being forced to wear a mask is like being sent to Auschwitz, which seems crazy. I shouldn't have to say why. But what about Ilhan Omar? Well, interestingly, in this case, the same representative is putting the censure resolutions and getting involved in the process of both. You have Representative Brad Schneider, a Democrat. Tomorrow, supposedly, he's gonna have his resolution condemning and censuring Marjorie Greene. But separately, last week, we talked about this letter. He was part of a group of House Democrats who are criticizing Ilhan Omar, accusing her of giving cover to terrorists and suggesting her remarks reflect a deep-seated prejudice. So her remarks were that effectively many groups have committed war crimes and atrocities. The Taliban, Hamas, but also the United States and Israel, which is an objective fact. I apologize if facts are inconvenient sometimes, that's the nature of them. But she is being attacked for that. Now, Greene has been criticized, and not just by Democrats and the damage report and stuff like that. She was condemned by Mitch McConnell, by House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy. He said she's wrong. Her intentional decision to compare the horrors of the Holocaust with wearing masks is appalling. So that's good, that they actually finally found something that she said that was bad. But they're also trying to draw some sort of parity with Ilhan Omar. And Kevin McCarthy said today that he would bar progressive Ilhan Omar or anybody that has an anti-Semitic, anti-American view. She criticized Hamas and the Taliban in literally the same statement, from serving on the House Committee of Foreign Affairs if Republicans take back the majority in 2022. And she would just be the beginning, I think, Wozni. I think that since Marjorie Greene was stripped from her committees for a billion bat-esque crazy statements, if they get back into control, I mean, God only knows how little you'll have to say for you to be taken off out of your committees.
Yeah, I mean, this is the right wing. This is the reactionary sector of our government, and this is what they do. It's funny to compare what Ilhan Omar said to Marjorie Taylor Greene is hilarious on its face, and it's always this need to quote unquote balance out our sort of discourse, right? Well, there's a Republican version of ridiculousness, of actual insanity, and we have to reach. We have to figure out a way to say, no, but there's a democratic form of it too. And it's Ilhan Omar, talking about the bombing of Cambodia and Laos, or the terrible atrocities from Central America with the Sandinistas, or the countless coups that the CIA has backed of democratically elected governments, or the 500,000 brown people who died in Iraq, or we can just keep going and going and going. Like, to point that out is somehow anti-American, or that means you're not a patriot. To point out that the United States too has carried out numerous atrocities over many years all over the globe, from Africa to wherever, it's just so freaking stupid. It's just about objectivity, both siderism run amok.
100% to claim those, like, she is stating a fact. They've all committed war crimes, all of them. That's just reality. Whereas Marjorie Greene said the Holocaust is like being forced to wear a mask, which is wrong. It's not like that. You know what the Holocaust is like? Two things. First of all, nothing. Second of all, well, if millions of people are killed in another campaign targeting different groups, then that will be like the Holocaust. But other than that, nothing. So she was wrong, and Ilhan Omar was saying a fact that people don't like. And there is nothing the right likes more than attacking people for making them think thoughts that hurt their brain. So anyway, we're gonna have to see what happens with it. Nancy Pelosi says that the House leadership hasn't rebuked Ilhan Omar over her comments, and her putting that out today might be an indication that they're not gonna be supportive of some sort of censuring or an attempt to take her out of her committee meetings. We'll have to see about that. I am curious what you all think, though. So we do have a poll. You can go to tyt.com/polls. The question is, will the Democrats come to the defense of Representative Ilhan Omar against GOP attacks? The specific link is tyt.com/polls/Omar-under-attack. I have my worries. I think that the Democrats love to show how reasonable they are by throwing their own under the bus when it's not warranted. They've done it in the past. They've done it in the past with Ilhan Omar. So we'll have to see. I am very worried about it. I'm also worried about what's gonna happen with Representative Omar if and when the Republicans retake the majority. So we'll have to see about that. Now, we're gonna take the second break of the show. When we come back, things have gotten bad in this country. We're gonna give you just a brief bit of what former President Barack Obama thinks and would have predicted would happen. So we'll have that for you, a fun little interview. And then whistleblower reality winner has been released from prison. So we've got those coming for you after this. Hey everybody, let's see what's going on out there out in the audience. British 32 sent in a super chat saying, "Hi John and Waz, great show today on TDR. That point should be applied to police in USA instead, so we can see every arrest and search of every officer, so there can't be cover-ups when they kill someone, so the attitudes change." Yeah, look, in theory, the implementation of body cameras might have that sort of outcome. It doesn't seem like it's working. I don't know, Waz, what do you think?
I mean, I think more observation of the police would absolutely be helpful, because again, teaching a kid that Thomas Jefferson had hundreds of slaves and it was messed up is a little bit different as a responsibility than being able to use state-sponsored violence to kill somebody. You're allowed to kill people. It's a different job.
You comparing those things, I'm gonna ask for a formal censure of Wazzy Lumber in the house. Another super chat, Sue Otness says, MTG would have benefited from critical race in school. She is the reason why. You know, the funny thing is, yeah, she probably would have. I don't think that anything of her story of like going to the museum and learning, and now she has like a deeper respect for it. First of all, she says she went to it when she was 19. But anyway, she's implying, do you know what she's basically trying to make you think happened? That she went to the hospital and became woke. Like now she understands the horror more than she did. She didn't. Let's be clear about that. But she wants to pretend that, hey, I'm a little bit woke now when it comes to the Holocaust. Anyway, Kathy says that is ridiculous to make teachers wear body cams. It's not gonna happen. They know it's not gonna happen, but they are deranged. John Maddox Hall says, as former university professor, I know that tenure was created to allow professors to introduce new ideas without fear of being fired. Perhaps body cameras are better than being burned at the stake. Well, I agree, but could we not do either? Let's not do either of those things. Yeah, you're totally right. By the way, and again, like it's there. I always talk about side effects to insanity. Like if you're gonna be obsessed with Save the Children because of QAnon, a side effect should be that when like a congressman is trafficking kids or minors, you should take that seriously. That should be one of the side effects, right? But they don't. If you're gonna talk about how cancel culture is the worst thing in the country and how dare you try to control people's First Amendment rights, you can't then also say we're gonna wipe out any teacher that talks about racism, that mentions Tulsa or Jim Crow or whatever. Like you can't do both of those things. Silver lining should be one of them goes away, but no, they can manage both. Get you a conspiracy theory cult that can do both. Anyway, John Frederick Leverson says, I'd give MTG's school report on the Holocaust a weak C. Yeah, it definitely seems like someone who didn't do the homework and just did a very brief bit of Wikipediaing. Let's see, Kyle Cushing says, I'm very much a normal person. I'm getting very stable genius vibes from her. That is true. Matt Merrow says, I'm very much of a normal person. I just really like to talk about the Holocaust more than an 8th grade English class reading Anne Frank normal. Yeah, Okay, let's see. Puff says, curious if teaching about the Holocaust in schools could fall under the umbrella of teaching about race theory. Well, it is teaching about a particularly violent form of systemic racism in the German government. They should probably just not talk about it. That seems better, right? You'll learn a lot that way. And let's see, Tamika says, even Trump wasn't censored for admitting the US wasn't innocent, but they want to punish Ilhan Omar. Exactly. With that, more news. Okay, let's jump back into this thing. Looking around the country, politics has gotten pretty rough. People are pretty unreasonable, pretty insane, spreading a lot of conspiracy theories. Look, things were not great under Barack Obama. They seem a bit more deranged, at least on social media. So what does he think about this? Did he expect that things would ever get this bad? Well, he sat down with Anderson Cooper and here's what he had to say.
Think it would get this dark?
No, I thought that there were enough guardrails institutionally that even after Trump was elected, that you would have the so-called Republican establishment who would say, okay, it's a problem if the White House doesn't seem to be concerned about Russian meddling, or it's a problem if we have a president who's saying that neo-Nazis marching in Charlottesville, they're good people on both sides. That's a little bit beyond the pale. And the degree to which we did not see that Republican establishment say, hold on, time out, that's not acceptable, that's not who we are, but rather be cowed into accepting it, and then finally culminating in January 6th, where what originally was, oh, don't worry, this isn't going anywhere, we're just letting Trump and others vent. And then suddenly you now have large portions of an elected Congress going along with the falsehood that there were problems with the election.
And the leadership of the GOP briefly for one night when they still had the sort of scent of fear in them, going against the president.
And then poof, suddenly everybody was back in line. Now,
okay, so look, they covered a lot of ground there, Wozni. It seemed to me like, I understand that his thing is being like very level-headed. He doesn't seem that freaked out about anything that's going on. Like, Is it just the interview? What did you think about like the general tone there from former President Barack Obama?
I think it's horse crap. I think this idea that the Republicans would be alarmed by anything other than losing is horse crap. All they care about is winning. Before Barack Obama was elected, these fools perpetuated the Iraq war. It was a lie. They lied to the public. We spent trillions of dollars, as I previously mentioned. 500, in a conservative estimate of 500,000 Iraqis died behind republicanism. This idea that they would just be, oh no, not Donald Trump disrespecting the form of government, not the formalities, and he's not being nice, but we still get to win and pass our tax cuts and deregulate every single industry from Kingdom Come to Timbuktu. No, not that. It's insane to suggest that these people would do anything else besides win. They just want to win. They don't care about these niceties that Barack likes to pretend that these people give a damn about. It's a level of naivety that gets on my nerves because Larry's a lot smarter than this. It's just ridiculous.
I want to ask you about one thing. So you mentioned that the only thing that would cause them to freak out would be to lose. So question on that. So 3 years ago now they lost the House and they just lost the Senate and the White House. Are they really that freaked out about losing? Really? They're not changing really. I mean, they're changing election laws to make it more difficult for Democrats to win, but they're not angry at Trump for presiding over all of these losses or Mitch McConnell. They don't seem to mind the people who are in charge. So how freaked out are they?
Well, look, you got to think about it. There were no actual consequences to having Trump as president for Republicans, not tangible ones, right? The apparatus of the government is so huge and entrenched. Even having somebody completely disinterested in his own job was pretty much just chugging along until the pandemic happened. An actual honest to goodness emergency, and it was just oh my God, this is a disaster. But besides that, nothing happened, John. We just kind of chugged along while this lunatic, ascended to the highest office in all of the world and basically treated it like a summer camp job, right? He did nothing all day, every single day. So if you're Mitch McConnell's whatever, we'll eventually come back into power in the Senate because the Dems are at a disadvantage because, again, places like Montana send 2 senators, just like our state, our home state, California. They understand their advantages and they know they can just sit tight, be patient, and do the only thing they care about doing: packing the courts with conservative judges, cutting taxes on corporations and uber rich people, and deregulating the hell out of everything. Everything else is who cares?
Yeah,
who cares?
I wouldn't be that angry about not being in charge necessarily. I mean, they got the tax cuts. They got a bunch of deregulation. They took over the courts. So the only thing in that case, and so there are 2 reasons why they might still be freaked out. Which is one, if there were a ton of crises facing their base that they just wanted to fix and now they can't because they're not in charge, but they don't care about any of that. I listed all their goals. Waz listed all their goals. The courts, deregulation, taxes, that's about it. The other would be if they were really worried that the Democrats were gonna reverse all that. Well, then you'd wanna be in power because you don't wanna lose all that stuff that you did. They don't seem like they're super worried about that. I mean, they talk about Biden as if he's some sort of Maoist or something like that, but they don't seem worried enough to, for instance, try a different electoral strategy. So, yeah,
I think you're John, really about something like tax cuts. It's those trillions and billions of dollars. They're already in those companies' bank accounts. It's not coming back out. Right? They shoveled all that wealth back up to the top and it's not going anywhere. That's entrenched, So what does Mitch McConnell care? It's my buddies got paid. I'm good.
That is a very good point. Fairly indisputable. Actually, no, now that we're talking about Indisputable, before we go on to our last story, probably the first hour, Indisputable is going to be coming up in about 40 minutes. YouTube.com/indisputable TYT. Dr. Rashad Richey is going to be on with Ben Cohen, who we've been lucky enough to have on the show a number of times. Adrienne Lawrence as well. He's going to have a debate with a conservative host, Josh Bernstein. So you're not going to want to miss that. 2:30 p.m. Eastern time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. It's going to be awesome. And I want to remind you, we are in the middle of our generally once a year membership drive, the Be the Change campaign. TYT over the years, even long before I joined, has fought for a lot. And the reason they've been as successful as they've been, with Cenk starting things like Wolfpack and helping to found the Justice Democrats, and try to change the conversation about candidates like Bernie early on, and covering things like, covering like Ferguson, covering what happened with Trayvon Martin earlier than the mainstream media, is because you members have always been there to help keep us stable. So if you appreciate what we do, if you value it and know that we're gonna need it going forward, you can go to tyt.com/change to become a member. If you're already a member, thank you. That's it. I just wanted to say thank you. And with that, why don't we jump into this next story? Yesterday, there was a bit of shocking news. I don't know if anyone was expecting this, but the whistleblower, Reality Winner, was released from prison. Not necessarily totally home free or anything like that, but at the very least on that path, released from prison. Let's see, we have this tweet that was sent out at the time by her attorney, Allison Grinter Allen, who said, "I'm thrilled to announce that Reality Winner has been released from prison. She is still in custody in the residential reentry process. We are relieved and hopeful. Reality and her family have asked for privacy during the transition process as they work to heal the trauma of incarceration and build back the years lost. Her release is not a product of the pardon or compassionate release process, but rather the time earned from exemplary behavior while incarcerated. Reality is still barred from public statements or appearances, and any inquiries can be handled through my office." So if you're not familiar with Reality Winner, why she was locked up, I'm not that surprised, because for some reason, out of all the whistleblowers and all that, she was talked about very little in her case. Anyway, here's the basic details. She's a former Air Force linguist. She entered a guilty plea back in 2018 after being prosecuted for leaking classified information. She had been arrested the year before and charged with sending a classified report about election interference to reporters at The Intercept. The report described hacks by Russian intelligence operatives against local election officials and a company that sold software related to voter registration. So she had been locked up, given a 5-year sentence for that. And we're gonna talk a little bit about the conditions that she was held under. But Wazi, what's your reaction to her, at least like basically like being put in like a halfway house or something like that?
My reaction is that one of the last things that remains bipartisan about our government is the ghoulish way in which we treat whistleblowers. Barry was freaking horrible on it, and Barry's supposed to be some enlightened cat. He was terrible to whistleblowers, and I'm not surprised that even under a Republican administration, we would be carrying out the same practices and tactics against people who would dare speak out against injustices carried out by not just other governments, our government too. So yeah, I'm not surprised by this. Like when it comes to hawkish military, state-run stuff, both sides of the aisle are in lockstep. We need to stamp out any and all dissent. Mm-hmm. The military is God in this country, and everything else can just go to hell.
Yeah, and the argument that's always given, like regardless of the content of the leak, is this is gonna harm our national security. Oh, but like, are you ever gonna describe how? Like, are there any cases where it actually like, shouldn't it have to before you lock up everyone who does it because it's supposed to?
Offer some proof how did this, that and by the way, was put in danger.
Exactly, and not just for her. You're totally right. This both sidesism in American politics is often BS. It's lazy thinking, but you're totally right. In this case, when it comes to whistleblowers, they all hate him. And by the way, the first whistleblower scandal for Joe Biden is it's pending. It's gonna come at some point. They're gonna lock somebody up. I don't know who they are. I don't know what their name is. I already want to thank them for their courage that they're gonna have, because both parties are really bad when it comes to whistleblowers. Yeah, like people need to have certain information. Like that's why whether it's Edward Snowden, Chelsea Manning, Reality Winner, Julian Assange, leave them alone for the whistleblowing. It doesn't mean that I like every one of these individuals or they're good people or they have our interests at heart or whatever all the time. But this is not, they're not demonized for those reasons. They're demonized because they dared to go against the security state, the intelligence apparatus, all of that. And by the way, we want to mention some of the conditions that she had been suffering under. So she had COVID while in prison, which isn't that shocking. So many prisoners did because our country didn't give a damn. We didn't do anything really to protect prisoners from getting and dying from COVID. Anytime you advocate for literally any better improvement of the conditions in our prisons, you're gonna be attacked for it because those are not humans. You're not supposed to care about them. Let's see, her prison lost power and heat during last winter's ice storms. A number of her fellow inmates actually died of COVID during that time. And she's just now been moved out of one of those. But go watch John Oliver's most recent episode about overheating in prisons, killing people. She very likely would have been subject to that had she been kept in, and now all of the other prisoners still will. So the conditions that these whistleblowers are held in are absolutely devastating. They shouldn't be suffering any consequences, certainly not the consequences that they are. So good that thanks to her good behavior, she at least got out to some extent. I don't know if she'll ever talk about the experience or anything, but I'm glad that she at least is not in prison anymore. Any further thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we gotta talk about just the awful conditions that people live under in the American prison system more often, honestly. Even practices like solitary confinement, where they keep people in for years in what they call 23-in-1. You're locked in your room for 23 hours a day. You get 1 hour for recreation. You have no human contact. People can't visit you. This is inhumane. It's torture. It's shameful what we're doing to American citizens in our prison system. And obviously it's horrible when they do it to whistleblowers, but it's horrible when they do it to anybody who's been considered to have broken a law. They're still human beings and still deserve to be treated with some level of dignity.
Right, 100%, 100%. And you don't have to leak state secrets to be devastated by our system. In that John Oliver episode, they talked about one guy who was in prison for writing a bad check, who died from the heat in the prison. That's what our system is. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this story, but thank you if you've been watching on the linear platform. But if you're on Twitch or YouTube, there's a lot more coming. So we are gonna take a short break. When we come back, we've got, let's see, Supreme Court ruling. It's pretty big one, and more besides. We've got that coming up for you after this. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the last third of the Damage Report. Very glad to have the slightly extended runtime for you so we can cover more stories. And we're about to do that. Before we jump into it, though, let me read just a few members' comments, including this is a literal members' comment from Squirrel Nut Mafia, who says, "Judge not a person by the color of their skin, but rather judge them by what snacks they bring to game night." Guess that's true. Waz, what snack do you bring to game night?
Probably something from Trader Joe's. It'll probably be whatever the spiciest potato chip they have. Probably bring a big old bag of that because I love Trader Joe's snacks, and I know I'm not alone in that.
I do like Trader Joe's. Their like candy and stuff is really good. Yeah, my wife got me really into hot Fritos. Except I swear, I feel like I got COVID and it ruined my taste buds because there was a period of a few months where I loved them and now they're too spicy for me, and I don't understand why that would happen.
That's interesting. It usually goes in the reverse order of you start something and it's decently spicy and you're like, nah, not spicy enough anymore.
Burns you out, yeah. Okay, so a few super chats for you as well. Lawrence Wells says, "Hi, John and Waz. That Omar is being censured the same as Greene is absolutely as ridiculous as Greene herself. It's because of honest people like you who break the monopoly on the narrative." Lawrence, thank you for watching. Appreciate that message. Stephanie Rampley says, "Marjorie Taylor Greene also said she previously visited the Auschwitz concentration camp when she was a teenager. So why did she need to go to the Holocaust Museum to get enlightened?" These are very good questions, very reasonable questions. Over on Twitch, Cena McMillan gifted 5 tier 1 subs. Thank you very much for that. Thank you, Ty Strong, for subscribing for the 4th month. Vengeful just hit 12 months as a subscriber. That was quite a year. Thank you, Vengeful. Zerklees hit 4 months. Let's see, read that. Brandy Lou gifted 5 tier 1 subs. Brandy Lou so often does. Thank you, Brandy Lou. I see you. I see you gifting subs. The Artsy Fartsy Dragon gifted 5 as well. Couldn't miss your name, Artsy Fartsy. And let's see, over at hashtag TDR Live for a more perfect America says, "If anti-racism divides a country, that country needs to reevaluate itself." That's a pretty good point. And with that, let's move on to some more news. The Supreme Court is really on one, regrettably in this case with a 9-0 decision where there could have been a bit more justice, but then the Supreme Court got involved. So effectively yesterday, they ruled that potentially hundreds of low-level crack cocaine offenders cannot benefit under a 2018 federal law. The First Step Act provision in question made retroactive another law from back in 2010 called the Fair Sentencing Act that was supposed to reduce a disparity that had left sentencing for crack cocaine crimes more severe than for powder cocaine crimes. Now, that wording sort of underplays what's really going on. It's more severe, it's way more severe. The ratio was 100 to 1. So that a 5-year mandatory minimum penalty, for instance, was triggered by possession of 5 grams of crack. You would require 500 grams of powder cocaine, and black defendants were far more likely to face crack cocaine charges than white defendants, who are more apt to face powder cocaine charges. So it's such a weird coincidence that one was 100 times more penalized. In any event, in this case, Tarak Terry, he's the individual at the center of this, scheduled to be released from prison in September, is black. He is not going to be able to be retroactively have his sentence reduced as a result of this. The reason is just basically a technicality. It's a wording thing in the bill. The authors of the bill are very clear that they intend this to have people like Tarak Terry be encapsulated under it. But in a 9-0 decision written by Justice Clarence Thomas, the court said that the First Step Act was limited by a technical omission. It left out the lowest rung of offenders. So we'll have a little bit more on this. But they specifically passed a bill in a US government that never passes anything, basically. Trump signed it. This is actually bipartisan to try to take away some of this disparity. Not totally, they were just reducing the disparity. And now it's not going to apply to those people. And the Supreme Court is unanimous in that.
Yeah, the idea that we would stop beating the crap out of black people systemically, it seems to be a really tough pill for the system to swallow, like, collectively, right? These laws were pretty freaking racist at the time. I think in real time, people understood that they were specifically targeting Black people, specifically crack, because that drug was synonymous with Black people and urban decay, et cetera, right? So at the time, it was obvious that we were coming up with mandatory minimums and this quote unquote war that we were fighting on substances. It was obvious that it was targeted towards Black people and the communities that they live in. And we've seen the consequences that those laws have wrought. And even just the smallest attempt to scale it back is met with resistance, and it's annoying, hilarious, sad, terrible, all of those things at the same time when you consider the current conversation that we're having about the opioid epidemic and who that's specifically affecting, and how we look at that as, these people are victims, they need help. Addiction is a disease, we need to take care of them. We see the fervor with which we attack that problem, and we still can't get over the dumb stuff that we did around the crack era.
Yeah, you're totally right. And you're right that it's like the system sort of like lashing back out. Like some of the systems seemed to have finally evolved. They wanted to change this. And here's the thing that bothers me about this story is that you might watch this, especially maybe if you're not from America, and think, oh, well then what's the problem? They just fix the language. Not so fast with that. So just because they passed it and Trump signed it and it seemed bipartisan, in theory, you should be able to knock this thing out in 20 minutes. Have a little bill that just modifies the wording a little bit, make it consistent with what the Supreme Court expects it to say for it to count for this lowest level of offenders. That's not the way the US government works at all. It's gonna be another 20-year campaign of activists, and God forbid if we don't get a Kardashian to bring this to the White House for it to actually work. This should be the easiest fix ever. And that's very rarely the takeaway from one of these stories, but I have no faith that they're gonna quickly fix this. Tarik Terry could end up spending years more in prison as the system sort of slowly gets back up to speed. Anyway, let's move on to other aspects of the inertia in the system that are frustrating. There we go, nice, thanks. We've been trying to put pressure on Kyrsten Sinema to get her to change her position on getting rid of the filibuster so that bills like the For the People Act can actually be passed. She either doesn't watch or isn't interested in what we have to say, but thankfully we're not the only ones. Others are trying to pressure her, including in her home state of Arizona. So just today I came across an op-ed by the Secretary of State for Arizona, Katie Hobbs, who had a bit to say about the war on democracy that the Republicans are currently prosecuting and how she can potentially get involved. Thank you, Sophie, our producer, is pointing out that she's gonna be running for governor. Thank you, Sophie. So here is what Katie Hobbs had to say. Democracy is under siege in Arizona. As part of the big lie that Republicans have been pushing about electoral fraud, they're conducting an audit in our largest county. Most Arizonans, Democrats, Republicans, and independents understand that the audit is a farce. But Republicans aren't just protesting the results of our most recent presidential election. They are laying the groundwork to steal the next one. This twisted logic has propelled voter suppression laws across the country in Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Iowa, Montana, and other states. So look, if you've been watching this channel, you know this. We've been talking about this ad nauseum. Something needs to be done. And in theory, something like the For the People Act could do quite a bit to actually help out. The thing is, right now, it doesn't seem like that's gonna pass for two reasons. First of all, the Republicans would just veto it, or they would filibuster it, effectively vetoing it. And even if they weren't to do that, as of right now, Senator Joe Manchin hasn't even signed on to it. But first things first, with the filibuster. So Katie Hobbs says the For the People Act is in jeopardy because 50 Republican senators and several Democratic ones are not taking the steps needed to pass it. Democrats, including Joe Manchin of West Virginia and Kyrsten Sinema of Arizona, either do not support the bill or refuse to touch the filibuster, an arcane Senate rule that has often been used to block voting rights in order to bring the bill to a vote. Sinema and I serve the same state. We both know that if we do nothing now, Arizonans' access to the ballot will be stripped away by the Republican legislators. If Republicans want to make the right to vote a partisan issue, that's their problem. I know, and I believe the US senators know too, that access to the ballot isn't a red or blue policy, but a basic American value. I mostly disagree with that last point. It clearly has become a very partisan issue, but I agree with her that something needs to be done. And she closes saying, I am taking what steps I can to fight back on a local level, but I cannot succeed without help from Congress. Please act decisively and pass the For the People Act. We are running out of time. So, she's not like burning Sinema to the ground or anything, but she is calling her out. What are your thoughts?
I mean, yeah, I wish she would burn it to the ground. Not literally, obviously, we peace, love, and happiness over here. But you know what I mean? Rhetorically, I would love to see her come after this woman because, again, we talked about when the Republicans know what they want, they go after it and they get it. This idea that Mitch McConnell or anybody within the Republican Party would come out for, say, a big tax cut that couldn't get through because Democrats wouldn't help them pass a bipartisan bill. You think they would come out and say, wait, hold on, guys, we really want to do it, but the Dems aren't on board yet. We got to get the Dems on board because bipartisanship is everything. Like, we need Nancy and the whole Democratic Party to be on board with our bills because bipartisanship is more important than everything else. No, you've never heard them say that or do that. When they want something, they get it done with or without the Democrats. Like this idea that this woman is giving countless press conferences at this point to talk about the sanctity of the filibuster and working together, reaching across the aisle. Show me the proof. Just show me the proof that bipartisanship is what Americans love and want more than anything. It's insanity.
Exactly. Yeah, and another form of the insanity I think is like politicians above all are supposed to be ambitious and pragmatic. Like they're supposed to care about their power. Like we all understand that, but in multiple ways they're not doing that. Like Joe Manchin is pursuing a political strategy that will almost certainly result in him being in the minority in the Senate in a couple of years. Now, we've previously talked about why I think he doesn't especially care about that, and I think that remains. But like he still in theory wants to be in the Senate, and you would think Kyrsten Sinema would as well. So Kyrsten Sinema is maintaining a filibuster that is going to result in the For the People Act not being passed. And that is going to substantively lower the chance that she gets reelected to that seat. Like they're changing laws in Arizona to make it hard for Democrats to vote, to make it easier to overturn elections. How does she not get that if she does win, and it's not a blowout, like if it's a squeaker, then they're not just gonna audit her election and some future Republican governor of Arizona isn't going to overturn it and decide, I'm just gonna appoint who I want. Like, I hope that it never comes to that. But it certainly seems plausible and much more plausible as Arizona Republicans continue to decimate voting rights there. Like I don't get why they aren't scared about what is going to happen to their own careers if they don't do something about the laws that we're seeing being passed around the country.
She must have it on good authority that if she plays ball, she's safe. I don't know. This woman's political instincts seem to be pretty crap. That you wouldn't want to put your name on stuff that's highly popular around the country just makes no sense. And I think part of it is just like, if they do get rid of the filibuster, that would mean that they would have to work.
Yeah,
they would have to do their jobs, they would have to actually govern. There would be no excuses. When you're Joe Mitch, you like being in a minority. You're not expected to do anything. We don't have any power. We can't pass anything. You just get to show up to work, pass the time, eat your free lunch, and do what you do, right? That seems pretty obvious to me that this dude has absolutely no interest in governing this country.
I bet that free lunch is pretty good.
I would assume so too.
Yeah. Well, it looks like our poll results are in. So we asked you, will the Democrats actually stand up for Ilhan Omar? Will they defend her? So let's bring those up and see what y'all thought. So, sometimes they're close, usually not. So will the Democrats come to the defense of Representative Ilhan Omar against GOP attacks? Looks like about a little bit less than 13% of you thought that they would. get near towards over 87% think that they won't. And look, so thank you to everybody who went and voted at tyt.com/polls. There's other polls up there if you want to have your voice heard. They read them on the main show and all that. That said, someone pointed out the wording maybe is a little bit off, but in a subtle way. The attacks aren't just coming from the Republicans, like Democrats signed on to that letter too. But that said, we still want to know if they're going to defend her. And so thank you to everybody who got involved with that poll. Now that said, I think that we have time for one more topic. So this is kind of a doozy, but let's jump into it. Earlier this year, as we started to emerge from the pandemic, there were a number of very high-profile instances of mass violence with guns. These mass shootings became common once again after about a year of not really having them. Now, I don't think that they're really making news in the same way as they were earlier in this year, but that does not mean that they've stopped. And there have been a lot of horrible mass shootings, just for instance, over the past weekend. So let's run through a bit of the gun violence that we're seeing. At least 4 major US cities were reeling from an onslaught of mass shootings that left 38 people wounded and 6 dead. And it's spread across the country. In Chicago, a woman was killed and 9 others were wounded when 2 men opened fire on a group standing on a sidewalk in the Chatham neighborhood on the city's south side. In the South Georgia city of Savannah, police said 1 man was killed and 7 other people were wounded in a mass shooting Friday evening. 2 of the wounded were children, an 18-month-old and a 13-year-old. About 4 hours later, over in Austin's downtown entertainment district, I think it might have actually been on 6th Street, a shooting left 1 dead, 13 people wounded, and another in critical condition. And by the way, if you look at overall, the Gun Violence Archive, an online site that tracks shootings across the country, reports that there have been 270 mass shootings so far this year. This is, they define it as any incident in which 4 or more people are shot. So, I mean, it was pretty much all over, and that's just the weekend was. So we had this like brief reprieve from gun violence, but it really seems like it's coming back.
Yeah, and you often do see a spike in violence across the country in the summer months because people are just outside, nothing to do, and it's hot. And so that's just something that generally happens. And yeah, I'm not surprised that while people were inside, they managed not to shoot each other as much last year, right? Which was a nice thing for once. But it's disheartening because I think people in this country have been conditioned to think that violence is just a part of what we do here. It's as guaranteed as the sun rising in the east every single morning. There's just going to be violence in America, particularly of the gun kind, because people got it in their heads that guns are integral, integral, yeah. Thanks. Are integral to our lives here in this country. Like people just dumb enough to think that. I feel actually thankful to have grown up in New York City where the gun stuff wasn't a thing. In fact, they came out with extremely punitive gun laws. Like if you were found to be with a gun, you get like 2 years minimum, right? Oh, wow. And I think that went a long way in decreasing gun violence and just an idea that just like, you know what? I'm not gonna bring this thing out or around me if I don't absolutely have to, because if the cops just search me, I'm going to the freaking pokey. And so, I feel thankful to have grown up in an environment where you weren't too worried about who's got a gun or who doesn't. But yeah, this stuff is disheartening, man. People getting shot left and right.
Yeah, I agree. It is left and right. I too, I don't actually at the time I wasn't that familiar with Connecticut gun laws, but I grew up in Bridgeport, and you were worried about getting jumped or whatever, but you weren't worried about getting shot necessarily. So that was nice. Now there's just way more guns, always more guns. Take a look at this map. This is number of gun deaths over just the first part of this year or whatever. It is all over. And look, I don't necessarily know what all the solutions are or what would work fastest but I do know this. I don't think that more guns is a solution. I'm willing to bet all of the few dollars that I have that the issue isn't that not enough people are packing guns. I think just so many We're at 40% more than at this point in 2020, which granted, was pandemic times. We're 65% higher than we were in 2019. Like we were making up for lost ground. That is just terrible.
Yeah.
Now, really fast.
Yeah, and there's no end in sight either. So no, I'm just saying there's no end in sight to this either. I don't know how we get this thing corralled and under control. There just seems to be violences just seem to be spiking all over the place. I've seen people trying to figure it out via studies, etc. We probably won't understand the reasoning for years to come, but it seems like the country is just becoming more and more violent by the day.
It does, and it's spreading everywhere. You can't even go to Disneyland to get away from it. Through mid-April, police have already arrested at least 14 people at Disney for toting guns. America, what is wrong with us? It's Disneyland. Like I don't necessarily want to be approached by those costumed people any more than you do, but waving a gun at them is not the solution. Are there scary things? Yes, I've been in the Winnie the Pooh ride. That thing is trippy, but you don't need to shoot anything in it. It's a small world. It's not that dangerous of a world, okay? Why are people bringing guns to Disneyland? It's kids everywhere. People are saying lines are too long, kill them all. No, like it's not gonna solve any of your problems. So one person, a South Florida man, weird, checked into the Polynesian Village Resort with an AR-15 and a 9mm handgun in his luggage, explaining that he brought them along to protect his wife and 2 kids from Black Lives Matter protesters. What? So 2 things. One, are Black Lives Matter protests going on at Disneyland right now? Is that a thing in Epcot? I don't know. And second of all, you need an AR-15 to protect them from protesters? But of course he thinks he does. He watched that gun-toting weirdo and his wife was wearing like the prison jumpsuit or whatever, waving guns at people who are walking by their car or by their house. You don't need it there. And I get it. We were all horrified at that story a couple years back where an alligator dragged someone's kid away into a pond in Disney. That was horrifying. It's probably not gonna happen again, and you don't need your AR-15 to avoid it.
Yeah.
Disney.
If there was any proof that we've completely gone off the deep end collectively as a society on the gun question, it's people bringing toting gats to go see Minnie and Mickey Mouse. Like that is just, and by the way, the excuse given being Black Lives Matter. I mean, I don't know. I don't think I'm the most tapped into Black Lives Matter and the protest movement, but I'm pretty sure Disneyland and Disney World are low on the list of places that they're gonna be making demands at. I don't know. Yeah, it's like, stop the cops from killing us, Goofy and Minnie Mouse. I don't understand this.
Yeah, I don't remember that part of the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. Anyway, okay. Well, Waz, thank you as always. We're always lucky when you take time out to join us on the show. So thank you so much. Until next time, where can people watch more of your work?
Yeah, obviously you guys should be checking out the Wozniak Twitch stream on the TYT Twitch network. Every Tuesday and Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 9 p.m. Check us out. We try to do politics. We try to talk about grub. We try to talk about relationships. We try to stick everything in there at once, John. So check out Wozniak when you get a chance. And yeah, just please check out my work at theringer.com. I do podcasts over there. I do a little bit of writing. Check me out at theringer.com and subscribe to the Woke Bros, me and Nando Vila's political podcast every Thursday morning. That's out for you guys. So subscribe to the Woke Bros wherever you get your podcasts.
Awesome. Sounds like fun. Thank you, man. Have a good one.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you. Unfortunately, it looks like that's all the time we have, but that's not all the content TYT has. Do you know that after the break we're about to throw to, Dr. Rashad Richey is going to be coming for Indisputable, and you might be thinking, well, where do I watch it? Well, you watch it at youtube.com/indisputable-TYT, obviously. You go there, you hit the subscribe button, and then it'll be waiting for you every day after the Damage Report. Does that sound like fun? You got like 6.5 more weeks of Dr. Rashad Richey to look forward to, and you want to be ready for it. So that's coming up very soon. Thank you to everybody for watching the show, for liking and sharing the stream, letting people know that we're live. If you interacted with us, Appreciate all your comments. Even if we can't get to all of them during the show, I do read all of them. So please keep those coming in. And thank you so much. Until next time, stay safe out there, stay sane out there, and I'll see you soon.
We back again. Ladies and gentlemen, we got a great show today. Welcome to Indisputable. I'm your host, Richey. Okay, here's what we got in store. We have none other than TYT legal expert, our very own Adrienne Lawrence will be with us today. Also, I got Ben Cohen, co-founder Ben & Jerry's, part of a campaign to end qualified immunity. We got a whole lot to talk about with that. And then the bullpen. The bullpen, who dares step in the bullpen with me today? None other than a guy named Josh Bernstein. He has a conservative talk show. Have you ever heard of him? Probably not. But he will be on the show today debating me on Black Lives Matter. He says they are in fact a terrorist organization, and also police reform should be, I don't know, interesting. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to take the church to church. I'm really sick and damn tired of some of these folks. Now, I subscribe to a Christian faith background. I believe in a radical Messiah of color. These individuals I'm about to highlight, they believe in the white Jesus, Donald Trump. That's who they believe in. I'm talking about the Southern Baptist Convention. So let me give you some background here. There's a guy named Russell Moore. Russell Moore was a member of the Southern Baptist Convention. As a matter of fact, he was president of their ethics wing of the denomination. I know that's quite laughable, but it's the truth. He was the president of the ethics wing. Now, this guy came out and said, hey, this church has corruption, sexual abuse cover-ups, and extreme racism. That's what he came out and said. He exposed it, leaked some audio, came out with a letter. And there's a dude running for the president of the Southern Baptist Convention out of Georgia. And his name is Mike Stone. Here's his response to the allegations of sexual abuse and racism being covered up inside of the church.
As a victim of childhood sexual abuse, I find the latest attack from Russell Moore to be absolutely slanderous, and it is as inflammatory as it is inaccurate. I'm Mike Stone, and I'm the pastor of the Emmanuel Baptist Church in Blackshear, Georgia, and I want to apologize for interrupting your Saturday. But I'm here on my back porch, unscripted and unprompted, just me and the camera on my phone, because I have to stop and address an issue facing me personally and more broadly facing the Southern Baptist Convention. I'm going to be relatively brief today because I really need to be up at the church helping our church family finish setting up for decorations for day camp next week. I've got to put the finishing touches on my own sermon. You pastors know what that's like on a Saturday. And I promised my sons I would try to take them fishing this afternoon, and I want to get all of that in today. But the slanderous accusations that Russell has leveraged now through the second backdoor press release this week really require that I stop and address these issues.
You piece of garbage. We're actually talking about children being abused. We're talking about sexual assaults and sexual abuse inside of your denomination. We're talking about extreme racism to the point that white nationalists who are members of your church have threatened to kill and to harm the white male, Russell Moore, who came out to expose it. Let me read this from The Atlantic. But confronting sexual abuse wasn't the only issue dividing Moore from the SBC, Southern Baptist Convention Executive Committee. The other absolutely draining and unrelenting issue has been that of racial reconciliation, Moore wrote. My family and I have faced constant threats from white nationalists and white supremacists, including within our convention. Some of them have been involved in neo-Confederate activities going back for years. This is the largest Protestant denomination in the United States of America, the Southern Baptist Convention. This preacher who's running for president also said there's nothing they can do to address the issues of sexual abuse and racism because they do not control their member churches with a hard fist. However, they suspended and decided to eradicate from their membership churches that had the audacity to actually embrace members of the LGBTQ community. So let me get this right. As far as churches engaging in sexual assault or sexual abuse, all good, no problem. Nothing you can do about that. Churches that engage in extreme racism, not really a Christian thing to get involved in. But churches that embrace the LGBTQ community, you don't give a damn about their money. You will eliminate them from your membership and you will make a public spectacle out of those member groups or member churches. To talk more about this, I have legal analyst, TYT, attorney extraordinaire, Adrienne Lawrence. Adrienne?
Thanks for having me on. Yes, so this Southern Baptist Convention, what we're really seeing is when you have oppressive structures built in and using religion as a farce, because that's essentially what's going on here. And when we look at Southern Baptist Convention, it has all of the indicia of a place that would be sexist, that would also be racist, that'd be homophobic. All of the isms seem to be active and alive there. And you can even see that by virtue of the fact that they don't allow women to be pastors. And even some hold this extremely archaic mindset that women should also maybe not even be able to do childcare or to preach in any way. It's these oppressive structures that really mirror this old school 1940s, 1950s ideology of, an us, them, the blacks go here, the whites go here, women are here, men are here hierarchy that is really a feeding ground for all of this abuse that's going on.
Yeah, and it's amazing that they claim to adhere to a doctrine of truth. The Christian Bible does say the truth shall set you free, but they pick and choose which parts of scripture they would like to adhere to, kind of like the way they do with the Constitution, right? Kind of like how they do when it comes to policy, laws, and statutes. They simply pick and choose the ones that they would like to adhere to. And I'm reminded that there was a time when the Republican Party, they held some kind of notion inside of their ranks that they were the party of law and order. But January 6th somehow did not disrupt that narrative for them. They are, in fact, lawless and disorderly. But why do you think, Adrienne, that the reality of who they are and what they've represented to the rest of the world seems not to stick to them?
Well, like you said, that whole pick and choose thing, it seems to be very convenient for them as the laws apply to everyone but them. And the same goes for when it comes to these quote unquote Christian principles that, oh no, those apply to others, they don't apply to us. And they're really using this as a cover, as a shield of saying, oh, we believe in these principles, yet they're engaged in this behavior that is totally the antithesis to Christianity. And they're using their whole Christianity, their evangelical ideologies as a farce, as a cover. And I'm really glad that they got exposed, even though I think we all probably knew what was going down.
Yeah, and it's quite ironic that the guy, Mike Stone, who's running for president of the convention, he does this response. And then in his response, he makes himself the victim, talking about his previous experience being abused. He then talks about how he really needs to get to taking care of his sermon, fishing with his children. And the only thing he found outrageous was the fact that Russell Moore said something about it. He didn't find it outrageous that these allegations came from the church. He didn't find it outrageous that these allegations have been substantiated by pastors of the church who have since left the denomination. He finds it outrageous that somebody had the audacity to say it. What does that say to you about the psychology of some of these religious leaders?
Well, it tells you that silence is everything. What they want is for you to obey, be that good sheep and just follow along. Do not say anything, whether it's hypocrisy, abuse, oppression that's being infiltrated and really at the core of the principles and the behaviors that are going on. And it reminds us essentially how a lot of the power structures that we have in society are not necessarily doing what they say they're going to do, where they're really just using it to bolster themselves. And I know that the Southern Baptist Convention, that they boast to have 14 million followers, but at the same time, over the last 14 years, they've been hemorrhaging followers so much. And so of course, now that these allegations come forward, people really want to pretend like it doesn't exist because God forbid they lose additional followers, because we know that that means less money and power.
Very well said, very well said. Okay, let's talk about Moscow Mitch. Mitch McConnell has finally said what I was hoping he would say, because Joe Biden keeps playing this game of we need a bipartisan way forward. Damn that. Mitch McConnell is not trying to play that game. You playing checkers, he playing chess. So McConnell has come out and basically said, listen, we're not playing this game with him. He can play this game all he wants to, but we're not moving in a bipartisan fashion whatsoever. All right, so Mitch McConnell went on the Hugh Hewitt show and said that he plans to block any of President Biden's Supreme Court nominations. Now remember, he's saying this after Biden has already promised he's going to nominate a black female to the Supreme Court, okay? So Mitch McConnell says, we're not doing it if Republicans win the majority in 2022. Okay, well that means you need to get to it. Let me go to the first video.
If you regain the majority in 2022 for the Republicans, and there's a very good chance of that happening, I'll come back to the individual races in a second. Would the rule that you applied in 2016 to the Scalia vacancy apply in 2024 to any vacancy that occurred then?
Well, I think in the middle of a presidential election, if you have a Senate of the opposite party of the president, you have to go back to the 1880s to find the last time a vacancy was filled. So I think it's highly unlikely. In fact, no, I don't think either party, if it were different from the president, would confirm a Supreme Court nominee in the middle of an election. What was different in 2020 was we were of the same party as the president, and that's why we went ahead with
it. He is such a slippery individual when wet and dry. Here's what AOC had to say.
We have had very difficult experiences with making, I believe, the opposite mistake. And especially if Senate Democrats are not going to pass reforms on H.R. 1, we cannot rely solely on a wish of winning elections, particularly in the Senate, when voting rights are under attack in Georgia, Arizona, and Texas, across the country. And if we're not going to pass H.R. 1 with the preemptive clauses that can roll some of that voter suppression attacks back, yeah, I believe that we should protect our Supreme Court, and I thought that should absolutely be a consideration.
So just to be clear, you do think that Justice Stephen Breyer should retire at the end of this term?
You know, it's something I'd think about, but I would probably lean towards yes.
Yeah. Adrienne, your thoughts?
Well, as far as it goes with Steve Breyer, like, yes, without question, it should be time that he might want to hang up the hat, because the reality is that it's the only way that we can preserve what little liberal leaning we have on the court is if he were to retire at the end of this Supreme Court session, which is coming up very soon, because only then would it give President Biden enough time to put in a potential candidate and nominee and then get that person passed and confirmed to get them on the Supreme Court before the next midterm elections come. So it's one of those things where we hope that Breyer sees what happened, with RBG and that he makes the decision. But then again, we do have a law that says that these justices serve for life. So we are all really at the whims of Justice Breyer.
And let's talk about that constitutional notion that we have justices that serve forever, right? First of all, it just doesn't make good sense. It really doesn't. When you think about a person having a job for the rest of their humanity, that doesn't make sense. You have all types of problems, corruption issues. Maybe someone really just gets tired of the post, but they stay there because that's the historical requirement. But I think to hold this kind of position truly accountable, there needs to be some reform in how we appoint and how they remain. What are your thoughts about that? You're an attorney, you've studied this stuff.
Okay, so I do see the benefits of it. They did want people to be essentially immune from corruption and really to be able to act independently as the leaders of the judiciary. But the reality is we know corruption will come at all angles, no matter even if your housing's provided for, your security detail, and your income, and you are perfectly cushy, people still are greedy, and given opportunities, they will go ahead and take them. And so, when we have these people serving for life, we see issues. Chief Justice Rehnquist, there were stories that came out after he passed, really going to his mental health and the issues that they had kind of reining him in and controlling him. And so a lot of things that happen with these justices, it means that the job falls on the clerk, the judge's clerk, to write the decisions and to make the rulings. And the thing is, we don't want that to happen. So yes, just like at law firms where there is an age cutoff in terms of practicing law, because you could lose your insurance, your malpractice insurance, there should be a cutoff for age and also competency when it comes to being a justice on the US Supreme Court and being a federal judge in any Article III court. But that's my personal opinion.
Well, let's talk about something that was floated by Democrats early and kind of, they backed away from it to enhance or balance the US Supreme Court, really adding justices to the Supreme Court. The Constitution does not mandate a certain number of justices. As a matter of fact, we have gone back and forth with the number of justices over the course of the duration of this nation. So we can do it. It has been done before. What are your thoughts about increasing the number of justices on the Supreme Court as an ideology?
Oh, I think it's fantastic. I think we do need to do it. We have this legacy of using gentlemen's agreements to get things done. Trump blew the vast majority of that out of the water and engaged in a lot of behavior that Democrats just weren't ready for it. As a result, we have a complete right-leaning court for the judiciary's leadership. And we cannot have that because that doesn't represent or reflect the ideologies and the progress and the place we are as an entire nation. So we should balance that out, because the thing is, when we only have one side being heard, we only have one side really being validated and uplifted by the laws of this country, by case law that comes out, we don't have a country. We really end up having some kind of monarchy or dictatorship. We need to have a true democracy, and that representation needs to be there.
AOC was bold enough, and I know it was uncomfortable, but she was bold enough to say exactly what she believed. I don't think she anticipated that particular question. She did have to be thoughtful about it, but she did not play the political game. She said how she felt in that moment. We need more elected officials like that. But there's another, Representative Jones, Democrat out of New York, said this: there's no question that Justice Breyer, from whom I have great respect, should retire at the end of this term. My goodness, have we not learned our lesson? See, this is what happens. Strength creates strength. Transparency lends itself to more transparency. This is a transparent conversation now, or at least it is starting to be a transparent conversation. And people are going to get their feelings hurt. This is not something that Breyer wants to hear, nor people that support Breyer. But it's a necessary conversation to have when you're dealing with social policies that impact the entire country.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. It's a problem. We need to have some kind of limit or some kind of structure in place, because allowing these people to dictate essentially the future of the nation as it goes into their passing, it's not gonna work. As again, we saw it with RBG. I can understand the thought of, hey, I get to have this job for life. I'm gonna take this job, but at the same time, it really takes away the democratic process and it locks in future generations to that individual's thinking. There should be a cutoff.
Yeah, and let's hope, let's hope that Manchin has reached his limit on how much money he can accept, because damn it, if he takes any more money to do any more bidding for the Republicans, his hands off anyway, right? I mean, we might as well hang it up. Okay, we got more on the other side. Ladies and gentlemen, we got a whole lot more of Indisputable. We'll be right back.
Well, the Young Turks, the Friday show is gonna be awesome. We're gonna help us over here. Drop it. We became the first ever daily online web television show.
No, the Constitution is the very core of America. The fact that we don't spy on American citizens, that we get a warrant, that we go to a judge, that we have a procedure, that we have due process, that is America.
On top of it, they go, why don't they just stay at their own schools? You gotta realize something. These schools suck. They want people to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. You ain't got no straps, you ain't got no boots.
He lit these fires in trash bins all around town out of frustration.
99th most viewed channel today on YouTube.
The Shorties Award.
Best web host.
We passed 1 billion views. Voice Award winner, news and information channel, The Young Turks. Oh, another Webby.
The Young Turks.
Can I curse? Yeah! For those of you watching on live stream, yes, we have adopted a pet iguana that showed up at our door.
A haunted version in the dark with our silhouettes.
Now let's get to the best line of the debate. And it was definitely the one against Fox. I told you we were coming.
I mean, you talk about it when it becomes a problem. Our lack of gun control is a problem.
Nonsense BS story is hurting that cause, and they need to wake up and recognize that they are being had by these people.
Biggest gang in America. question is, how do we make sure that we blame the person who is dead? What kind of democracy is that?
We should never forget that the most powerful people in the world exploited the greatest tragedy in American history to go to war in a country that had a lot of oil.
Rolling thunder. That's what this show is.
Never in my life did I think I would like to see a dictator. But if there's going to be one, I want it to be Trump.
Tick-tock, tick-tock.
Where's the line? We've crossed every line you can imagine.
We are a socialist country. It's socialism for the rich.
Tick-tock, tick-tock.
You don't have to know the truth, just believe what they tell you.
There is no bounds to their monstrous hypocrisy.
Tick-tock.
I think we're gonna win the Senate in 2020. And I think we're gonna have the House, and I think we're gonna have the presidency.
Tick-tock.
And in 2020, we're going to clean your clock, and we're gonna run you out of town, and we're gonna have an actual democracy in this country.
November of 2020 could also be potentially the greatest day of our lives. Let us whisper of a dream.
Say hi to the camera.
I don't like this.
All right, welcome back to Indisputable. Let me read some of these viewer comments. They're coming in hot and heavy. Let me remind everyone, if you're watching Indisputable on my big homie John's channel on the TDR, the Damage Report YouTube stream, make sure right now, this very moment, I need you to hop over to the Indisputable TYT page, okay? Make sure you hop over quickly because that stream will not be there forever. So make sure you hop over there ASAP. Indisputable TYT on the YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe, hit that bell so you are alerted when I am live Monday through Friday, okay? Let me read some of these comments. TYT member, Ladomiso Madalo. I'm probably close, I think. What was the life expectancy in 1776? That's funny and true. Okay, Ian Golubis. Way back then, people died at 45 to 60. So appointing them for life was about a 20 to 40 year term. Put that into law. YouTube. Kind of sucks being this Breyer guy. So many people discussing you retiring and how it would be for the good of the many. It's a lot at stake. Me too _ appeared says, please let not this be RBG RIP. The Palm 2K says Biden isn't getting a Supreme Court nominee. Mitch and the Repubs won't let him. And also President Manchin is probably going to have something to say about it too. Yeah. Dimensional Mystic. Everyone in Congress serves for life with all this gerrymandering. Yeah, it is basically a de facto lifetime appointment. When you are in power and they gerrymander your district, you stay there forever. That's a very good point. Okay, super chat. Religion could be a way to find and develop a personal moral ethic code. Sadly, it is far too often used as a tool for oppression of the others. That's correct. Neil Fox, calm, says, ready the doc. I recently saw on RM that the council who governs the SBC, Southern Baptist Convention, are all white. No surprise there. I'm black, but not Christian, so I don't know how that works. Lucy Dean, and this is a good point, and I want to address this, and thank you for the comment, Lucy. I'm not trying to be offensive, but I don't understand why so many black people are Christian. It was a weapon of slavery. It just seems illogical to me. I am black. And Lucy, you make a good point. And it was weaponized. It was perverted. It was utilized as a tool in order to continue to justify oppression. However, that was not the original formation of scripture or the inspired scripture. Now, I don't believe, like some, that this is God talking to man. I believe people were inspired to write stories about God. That's what I believe, and that's where my faith connects. But there are parts of the scripture I can't get down with. I can't get down when the scripture says slaves obey your master. I can't get down with that scripture no matter what, okay? Because God gave me a brain before he gave me a book, okay? Lawrence Wells says, Adrienne Lawrence, beautiful and incredibly smart with a strong sense of justice to boot, was not to love. That's awesome. Forbesilla says, okay, Jesus was never white, like ever. Yeah, thank you for those comments. I can't read every single one of them. Let me get some from Twitch. Peace, love, and Dragon subscribe with Prime. They've subscribed for 5 months. Thank you. Sonic Boom, Dragon 23, Southern Baptist Convention is a religious corporation. It is. It's Christianity Inc. That's what that is. Correct. Extended their tier 1 subscription through July. Thank you for that. Sethian Rosen. Wait. So because it happened to him, it can't happen to others? All right. And Mad Mario 6914, woot woot, getting ready for some serious knowledge to be dropped. Thanks, Dr. Rashad. And it is my pleasure, but I have a knowledge dropper on the show. So, Adrienne, you gotta see this video, because to me, it is just as telling because it's considered breaking news. Have you ever known something to be breaking news just because a politician apologized? Well, I've never seen it be breaking national news because somebody said, I apologize. But ladies and gentlemen, here's breaking news.
This woman is mentally ill. You know, we can look back in a time in history where people were told to wear a gold star. And
I have made a mistake, and it's really bothered me for a couple of weeks now. And so I definitely want to own it. The horrors of the Holocaust are something that some people don't even believe happened, and some people deny, but there is no comparison to the Holocaust. And there are words that I have said and remarks that I've made that I know are offensive, and for that I want to apologize. Anti-Semitism is true hate, and I saw that today at the Holocaust Museum, and I think it's something that we should all remember and never forget. So I just wanted to come here today and say that I'm truly sorry for offending people with remarks about the Holocaust. There's no comparison. There never, ever will be.
Let me put this in perspective. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, she did apologize for her offensive comments comparing Capitol Hill mask wearing rules to the Holocaust. She did this after visiting the US Holocaust Memorial Museum. Now, don't get caught up in the hype. This was all planned because according to her, she had been developing this narrative for about 2 weeks. She visits the Holocaust Museum, holds a press conference, and it's all just a bunch of bull, all right? Now, this woman has said things that are anti-Semitic, anti-black, anti-Muslim. She has not apologized for any of those comments whatsoever, all right? So now she's come out, she's apologized for this stuff, but she did not retract her statements about the other things that she has said, offending other groups of people in the United States. Here's some of that.
This woman is mentally ill. You know, we can look back in a time in history where people were told to wear a gold star, and they were definitely treated like second-class citizens, so much so that they were put in trains and taken to gas chambers in Nazi Germany. And this is exactly the type of abuse that Nancy Pelosi is talking about.
She's not going to apologize for that. She doubles down on those statements. Adrienne, on CNN, it was really interesting. Wolf Blitzer reported on this, and literally it was the breaking news graphic that came across the screen, and Wolf did his breaking news. Marjorie Taylor Greene apologizes for statements about, it was just amazing. Like, damn, we have come to a place now where a politician apologizing for something that they said that was bat-ish crazy is now breaking national news, because they are so extreme on the other side that if they have a semblance of common sense with any statement they make, that becomes the news, not the other way around. What are your thoughts?
No, indeed. I think we're all somewhat traumatized from the Trump era, where there was tomfoolery going on probably about 24 hours a day. And that really set us off on high alert. And now that we don't have it, we're having withdrawals. And fortunately enough, we have Marjorie Taylor Greene to act a fool on the regular. And this is just another example of her chosen ignorance. It's not that this woman did not know and could not appreciate the Holocaust. It's that she chose not. Rather, she chose to trivialize it to advance her anti-vaccine, anti-masker agenda. So let's not give her any brownie points here. This is a chosen ignorance. This isn't something that said that, oh, she is mentally ill, or oh, she has issues that prevented her from knowing this information. No. She chose to use this as part of her pulpit so that she could preach more nonsense and really kind of stoke more of the Trumpism that we've had over the past 4 years. So, this is just an extension of the nonsense that we've seen.
Even crazier than the fact she gives this apology of sorts is the fact that now she's in danger of losing her Republican primary in her congressional district. Please understand, the people that elected her, they elected her in this district because they wanted her to say things like she used to say. They wanted her to be anti-Jewish, anti-black, anti-Semitic. They wanted her to do exactly what she has been doing. She's not competent, so she cannot be an actual representative, but she can be an expression of the QAnon membership, of the QAnon movement. And by her now saying something that actually makes common sense out of context for her, then she endangers herself as far as a political candidate for re-election in her district. How crazy is that? But I gotta shift gears, we're running out of time. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish a Karen would. We search all across the country and we bring you the Karens of the world. Karens are dangerous. Now, I want you to meet this Karen. This Karen entered a dog grooming business and has a tantrum after being turned away because she did not make an appointment. Now, obviously, Karen is walking in saying, I'm Karen, I don't need an appointment. And the individuals who run this shop, they are Puerto Rican, according to the narrative here. And she has her racial aggressive discourse. Here it is.
Just to let you know I'm recording you. Just to let you know I'm recording you and recording your racist comments.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead. You're refusing me service because I'm not Puerto Rican.
And who said that? The only person that said that here was you.
No, my husband.
The only person that has mentioned anything about race in this place has been you. Nobody has mentioned nothing about race.
My husband went online. He went
If you damage that computer, you are going to have to pay for it.
I made an appointment for today.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
It's not
Do you understand what I'm saying? If you damage that computer, you're gonna have to pay for it.
What?
If you damage that, you're gonna have to pay for it, and that's very expensive. Do you know that?
I'm not damaging.
Okay.
Anything.
Well,
I'm saying that you're refusing me service
because you don't have an appointment. Because you don't have an appointment. There is no other reason other than you do not have an appointment.
Online.
If you don't have an online confirmation, you didn't do anything. Now you can take your dog and leave and go elsewhere because you're not welcome here anymore.
She eventually told them they need to go back to their own country, go back where you come from. Puerto Ricans are American citizens, by the way. She obviously needs to take another civics class. But this individual decided to make this very simple issue racist and said, oh, you're not serving me because I'm not Puerto Rican, which is insane. She just did not make an appointment. But once again, a person who's willing to be serviced at a place where Puerto Ricans work and they own and they run is racist against the people there. And that's this whole sentiment about proximity. That somehow if you have friends that are black, or you have friends that are brown, or you shop at places that black and brown people own, that somehow you're just not racist. But as soon as there's a conflict, as soon as something happens that you don't like, and you feel as if you need to put them in place, what do you go to, Karen? You go to their ethnicity. You go to their culture. You go to their race. Rather than dealing with it as a sensible adult, you go back to that because your thinking, your mentality, your ideology is still rooted in a Klansman-like nature. Adrienne, your thoughts?
No, you hit the nail on the head on that one. That's exactly what happens, is that these people have these beliefs that are already lying within, and the moment that they get a chance to weaponize it and try to use that against you to insult you, it really speaks to the fact that these people are racist at heart, because racism doesn't just jump out of you. These are already ideas and mentalities that this person is holding on to. And the fact that they're using that to try to insult these business owners who were extremely professional and extremely kind in the face of her hate, oh man. Like these people, I just wish they would just wear t-shirts or some kind of branding and just say, I'm a racist, just keep it moving.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be simpler back in the day. They wore a hood, right? And that hood would just let us know, okay, we know exactly what you own, right? So let me go to this second video so you all can get the full context here of our Karen of the day.
You know what? Let me say this, and I'll say this on camera. You're not welcome in this country. Go back to your island and fix your frickin' over there and get out of my country. Get out of my country. Don't live here. Don't live here.
And I'm assuming that you're a native Indian?
I like how he said, I'm just assuming you're native, right? Once again, Puerto Ricans are American citizens. And I guess this Karen, she owns the country, basically. But it's that sense of entitlement. When we talk about privilege, Adrienne, that's what we're talking about. A person that's responsible, that's peaceful, that's being respectful, and owns a company that you patronize. That person, when they do something you don't like, they don't belong in your country anymore.
Yep, it's a mentality that you should be serving me, that I am always right, that I can speak to you any which way, or that your only good or benefit in this world is to serve me and to meet my needs. So the moment that I realize that, hey, you're an actual person with boundaries and expectations, and I actually do have to respect you, that's when these racist individuals will lose it, as we just saw that woman do.
Let me shift stories because I really want to get this in. There's a kid who graduated from high school. Very proud of this young man. This is at Asheboro High School. This happened earlier in the month. The student, Ever Lopez, was told after the ceremony that he was being denied his diploma. Now, why was he being denied his diploma? Was it because he did not meet the academic prerequisite for his diploma? No. Was it because he did something to violate the behavioral code of that school system? No. He was told he would not receive his diploma because he had the audacity to not remove the Mexican flag that he was wearing while graduating. His family was there. They were very proud of this moment. He wore something that symbolized his heritage, and his cousin caught some of this on video. Here it is.
Martinez Lopez. Christian Martinez Greene.
That's pride right there. Very proud of that young brother. Here's the second video.
You're talking about success and you're holding his diploma.
It just makes you like a racist right here. Not giving him his diploma. You're racist. Because he's just bored of flag.
Parents and him can come back tomorrow and we can talk about
No, we can talk about it.
You just talked.
Police officers escorted this young, dynamic individual out of the school. The principal said that he, in fact, violated the dress code. However, there was no dress code policy found that you could not do that. And what you see here is them denying the paper he had worked for so many years, denying that diploma because they could. Now, initially, they then said, well, if you apologize to us, we will give you your diploma. And he stood his ground. He said, no. You apologize to me. He eventually did receive his diploma, but once again, penalizing a young scholar who's ready to meet the real world. And before they can get out the door, they're faced with the same prejudice that they will face by those on the other side of that high school. Adrienne, what are your thoughts about this?
It's incredibly unfortunate. This is supposed to be such a memorable day for this young man and for him to be able to show his Mexican pride. And it is met by racism, as you have acknowledged. Because, the thing is that I feel rather confident in saying that if he had a British flag or if he had some kind of flag from, I don't know, Germany or a European country where the individuals are primarily white, wouldn't be a problem. But since it's a brown nation that he is representing and showing pride for, they are offended by it. And the thought that they'd want him to bend the knee to apologize and they'll give him his diploma, that is absolutely disgusting. I hope these people are appalled by their behavior, and I really hope that they face some consequences, because this is not how you show inclusion, and it is not what they say that the American way is supposed to be in terms of embracing other people, other cultures, and really being a melting pot.
Mr. Lopez's mother, her name is, Margarita Lopez. She said, Miss Crooks, that's ironic, that's the name of the person at the school. Miss Crooks told her in an email on Sunday that her son could pick up his diploma. But Miss Lopez said she and her son also wanted an apology. To me, this was an act of racism, not just to my son, but to the entire Hispanic community. And she is correct. She's 100% correct. To our knowledge, we did the research. The school has not released an apology. But here's what I'm going to do. The principal, her name is Penny Crooks. Penny Crooks. I want this young man to get an apology. So I'm going to give out the school number. It's a public number. The school number is 336-625-6185. The school hours are between 8:30 a.m. and 3:30 p.m. Now, I'm not telling you what to do. You just do whatever you want to do with that, okay? All right, Adrienne, final words.
Final words, well, we just need more people to be more cognizant of their racism, whether it's internalized or whether it's something that they overtly put out there and are fully cognizant of, but we need it to stop. It's just, it gets exhausting, please stop.
Yeah, tell people how they can follow you on social media.
You can catch me on Twitter at Adrienne Law, on Instagram at Adrienne Lawrence, and you can catch my videos on TYT Overruled on the Rebel HQ channels on Facebook and YouTube.
Always a pleasure, dear sister. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, on the other side, I got a guy stepping in the bullpen with me. You don't want to miss it. We'll be right back. Indisputable.
You know what the progressive movement needs? It needs a little energy, a little pizzazz, maybe a little caffeine. Oh, coffee. But what if it was Too Strong Coffee? Yes, new, toostrongcoffee.com/TYT. Look, this helps progressive causes. It's also organic and fair trade, so you've got peace of mind that it was done right, and it happens to taste great. So check it out right now at toostrongcoffee.com/TYT.
That 300 million is a pretty good number, Well, that's the size of the US population. You know what our next target is? The size of the entire world.
We just crossed 5 billion views on YouTube.
I mean, imagine 10 years ago thinking one day.
We looked at you like, are you nuts?
Young Turks has just passed another milestone. 15 billion views.
Damn. All right, lots of comments. You guys are the best.
I'm gonna read a few comments from our members.
Mr. Methuselah says on YouTube, super chat, thanks for all the important work you do for TYT for the movement.
Do you know who had the first super chat when I got back from vacation? You won't be surprised to find out. Rob Shively. What do you know? Rob says, rejoice for Dragon Daddy has returned.
This question sent to us by Izzy Sanchez Jr. Is it me or is Meghan McCain talking as fast as Ben Shapiro? Is that the way the right tries to look smart and intellectual? Well, yes.
Michael Nathan writes it on Twitter. Did Anna choose Cenk's outfit today? I'm sure it wasn't Cenk himself. Man Bun Jenkins Skinny Jeans says, so now Anna has pointed out, okay, that's his handle.
T. Joyce, 1971, saying Donald Trump is good at pulling out of things, NAFTA, the Iran deal, NATO. It's just too bad Fred Trump didn't.
All right, let me do a little quick plug here. It's not even a plug, I'm bragging, okay? I'm bragging, watch me. We have a channel on YouTube, a whole channel devoted just to the Young Turks. It's badass, right? Wow, man. I can see the voice.
You guys are rock stars.
Unbelievable. Senator Sanders, welcome to Rebel Headquarters. Man, you guys are amazing. We gave you what you wanted. Okay. Speaking of shirts.
I have a surprise.
You reached a lot of people. You are the Young Turks. And we have spread that progressive message wide and far. Let's keep it going. Are you our next stream star?
Oh my God, that's me?
Show us what you got with your Twitch pitch. All you need to do is put together a 2-minute audition video on why you should have your own stream on TYT, and then put it on Twitter and use the hashtag TwitchPitch, plus tag us at The Young Turks. And if you needed even more information than that, tyt.com/TwitchPitch has all the info you need. I can't wait to see your videos. Cool news, shoptyt.com now has books. There's a whole bunch of books there. You're gonna be shocked to find out that they're largely progressive. Of course! Ryan Grimm's book, We've Got People, is there. It's a fantastic story from Jesse Jackson to Bernie Sanders to AOC that explains the progressive movement probably better than any book I've ever read. Speaking of awesome books, my dad's got a book out called The Original Young Turk, where he goes from the poorest olive farmer you ever met in your life to living the American dream. Welcome back to Indisputable. Let me remind everyone to follow us on social media, Indisputable TYT, all social media, Indisputable TYT, and make sure you are watching the show on the YouTube Indisputable TYT page, all right? YouTube.com/Indisputable TYT, YouTube.com/Indisputable TYT. Make sure you subscribe and hit that bell so that you can be alerted anytime Indisputable is live, Monday through Friday. Okay, let me read some of these great comments. Viewer comments coming. TYT member, 1020 Carey says, who made her go to the Holocaust Museum? ? Ian Golbis, not a politician apologizing, a Republican apologizing is breaking news. That is a really, really good point. Really great point. YouTube. Actually, Latin people seem closer to Native Americans ethnically than white folks. I'm a Brit, forgive my ignorance if I'm wrong. Ja Blue says, and that was from David Morris, excuse me. Ja Blue says, that's the goal of the oppressors, is to strip you of the heritage, strip you of your heritage and culture. They are doing it all over the globe. Twitch, insatiable, I think, Lakari, or Lakara, or Likara. I'm so wrong, just forgive me. Okay, I'm a dog groomer and people pretend they make appointments and throw fits all the time. This guy handled this fantastically. Way better than I would have ever handled something like that, okay?
Alabama Dragon says, if her husband in the same state when he made appointment, no wonder it's not showing. Sonic Boom Dragon 23, very polite man. He stood his ground. He did, very polite. Nicely wipes. That's awesome, by the way. It reminds me of the Karen that told a Native American to go back to Mexico. Yeah, all right. Ladies and gentlemen, a man who truly needs no introduction. I have on the show co-founder of Ben and Jerry's, my big homie, Ben Cohen. Ben, how are you, man?
Yo, Mr. Rashad, what a pleasure. How you doing?
It's awesome, man. I'm doing quite well, brother. I told you, man, the reason why I'm not thin and fit right now is because of you, brother. Is all your fault.
You look pretty fit to me. We like a hefty kind of guy.
There you go, there you go. Well, everyone knows you obviously from the iconic brand of Ben and Jerry's. But let's talk about the campaign that you are a part of. You're the co-chair of the campaign to end qualified immunity. We've talked about qualified immunity on this program extensively. I talk about it on my radio show. I've been an advocate to get rid of it. Very proud of some of the jurisdictions that have taken this up, especially places like New York. And to give some context, qualified immunity really is rooted in racism. It was a way for white police officers who decided to commit acts of violence and constitutional intrusions on black people to have a personal protection. And these southern states especially started passing these immunity laws that disconnected police officers or government workers from actual liability. And it's a ridiculous rule. It needs to stop. But Ben, tell us why this is such an important fight for you.
You know, as you might have noticed, I'm a white guy. You know, people say this is a black problem, but I don't see it as a black problem. I see it as a white problem. You know, in our society, whites are the majority, whites are the ones who have the power. And the people that we are arming and hiring to protect and serve are killing unarmed black people, and we're letting them get away with it. I mean, first it's outrageous that they do it, and then they don't end up getting charged. And if they do end up getting charged, like 2 years later, you hear that, well, they got off with a slap on the wrist. But, you know, so I feel like we white people need to take responsibility for the police that we are hiring to protect and serve when they go off the rails.
You make a remarkable point, Ben. Something I've said in my commentary before is that it's interesting when a white officer commits an act of violence against the black community. The black community, we will typically hold some type of press conference, maybe a vigil, we will do a rally, and all of those things are great. But I'm calling for white people, for woke or halfway woke white people to call out other white people that do this insanity. And you're one of those woke white people, and you are saying that it's time for white folks to call out white folks. Am I hearing that halfway right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, one of the beautiful things to see when I was at the protest in DC after George Floyd got murdered was that there were so many white people there.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful that we were being led by black people. But now, right now, this bill to end qualified immunity is in the Senate. It is currently being negotiated. And right now is when the Senate needs to hear your voice. Now is when your voice counts. Call your senator, tell him you want him to overturn qualified immunity. It's pretty easy to do.
You know what's interesting about qualified immunity? When you do a national poll and you break down the elements of what it does, most Americans are for ending qualified immunity. Also in places like Georgia, which has been considered a Republican state for a very long time, they put qualified immunity on the ballot. And guess what citizens did in a bipartisan way? They said, okay, we need to weaken qualified immunity. So now in Georgia, the judge has the ability to set aside qualified immunity case by case. That was a way to weaken qualified immunity in Georgia. They put it on the ballot. People throughout the whole state voted, and Republicans, Democrats, Independents, etc., said, you know what, qualified immunity is a bad idea. Why do you think there's such a pushback from especially those on the right to get rid of something that just seems so ridiculous in the first place? Every profession has a liability standard. Doctors, psychiatrists, school teachers, everybody. Why should cops not?
You know, I'm with you. It just doesn't make any sense. It defies logic. And the interesting thing about the national campaign to end qualified immunity is that there are 16 organizations that are members of the coalition, including Americans for Prosperity, including the Cato Institute and the NAACP Legal Defense Fund and the ACLU. So it's people from all sides of the political ideological spectrum that understand that qualified immunity is just unjust and absurd. It doesn't make any sense at all.
Let me ask you this, man, because you're a rarity and you should be the norm. You are utilizing your platform, your privilege, your opportunity to move the conversation, to do so for social justice. Why is it that we don't see more business leaders utilizing their amazing platform the way you are?
You know, it seems like the current way of the culture in the United States is that people are only concerned about themselves. I think that, I mean, I was amazed when I was at the Occupy Wall Street in New York City, and Jerry and I were there scooping ice cream for the occupiers. And some guy comes up to me and says, what are you doing here? How come you're here? You're part of the 1%. What does it help you to have fairness in our society in terms of income and ending economic disparity? And I told him, it's not about me. It's about justice. It's about fairness. It's about equality. I mean, I guess I was a gullible little kid when I went to public school, but I mean, they told me that's what the country was about. Fairness, equality, and justice, and I loved it. I mean, I ate it right up, and I still want our country to be about that. And it's a democracy. If I want it to be about that, I got to work to make it happen.
Very well said, man. I'm flat out of time, Ben. It has been a pleasure. Let me remind everyone: get behind this to end qualified immunity bill. Pressure your U.S. senator, or make sure you get involved in replacing them if they do not serve your agenda.
I gotta say, you gotta check out the podcast Unaccountable. It's with me, Hello Black, Unaccountable, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm under orders from my higher ups to tell you that.
Awesome, beautiful, man. We will check out Unaccountable, and is everywhere podcasts can be found?
Everywhere podcasts are available. Unaccountable. Right.
Good stuff, man. Unaccountable. Thank you so much, man. We appreciate you, Ben.
Thanks a lot, Rashad.
All right. You take care as well. We got more on the other side. The bullpen is next. Indisputable.
Cenk Uygur is not here today, which means that I will be able to talk during the show. Now,
we'll see.
Poor Cenk, under the bus.
My God, if Jesus came back, how much would the Republicans hate him? Now you have to give away all of your possessions to the poor. Steve King would be like, oh, Weezy. Everyone should be lucky enough to have a John Iadarola in their life.
You confused everyone?
Okay, sorry, I thought it was pretty clear.
Take a break now.
You can turn me to Dr. Manhattan as long as I get what Dr. Manhattan's packing, okay?
The liberal mom says, Mark Thompson, have you ever thought about doing one of those tapes that soothe people to sleep? Like Mark Thompson reads the phone book. I'd buy it.
If you'll buy it, I'll do it.
Emilio D'Amelio writes in, John, you are so thick. I love you. That's what he wrote.
Pork Chop Express writes in and says John Iadarola needs a new jacket.
Whoa.
Those 24-inch pythons are about to burst out of his sleeve.
Gun, baby. You know, the two people here said that their moms were both in love with you over Beauty and the Beast.
Mm-hmm. That's an improvement. I usually get grandmothers.
Charlie Turk.
No, wait a minute, don't you dare.
Chemical castration when we return from the break.
I hope that, who they choose for the White House isn't just a borderline Klansman. That's all we gotta hope.
That's it, we will settle it.
She's cute. I didn't say that about Laura Ingraham.
Scandal at TYT. Did Anna comment on my tan yet? No, she hasn't.
You're a good boss.
But Anna did say that I come in here today with a fresh mind. That's all I'm about. I'm about a fresh mind.
I can't with you right now. Okay?
She just can't. She can't, but nonetheless, we have to for another 3 hours. I'm back, baby. Let's rip into Republicans. See, don't miss the live show. That's great. Tell people, if you're a member, you get the whole live show whenever you want, because this stuff doesn't go into any of the clips.
You are the media revolution. You are much needed.
TYT. The place is like 95% TYT on.
You guys, the Young Turks, which is my favorite channel, we're getting that message out.
Frank and the Young Turks do an extraordinarily good job.
No matter what mainstream media says, you have to listen to the Young Turks.
The people who support us on the internet, that's what gives us strength. That's what allows anyone who was in there who was undecided to think one side seems to be winning, they seem to have a bigger army. There might be a reason for that. So thank you guys.
What's happening? I'm Dr. Rashad Richey, host of Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey. Here's the bottom line. I play no games about policy, period. Too many people's lives are at stake. So here's what I do. I challenge conservative ideology that hinders the growth of this country. I make sure we place our facts in proper context, and I have no problem debating anyone on a position that I have. Progressives have the ideas to change the world, but when you really look at it, progressives have always changed this world for the better. I want you to tune into my new show, Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey, right here on the TYT network, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. I'll see you there.
Everything that we've accomplished over the years is because of our members who've allowed us to remain independent of corporate interests and reach 20 million followers. Now is the time to bring as many people into the progressive movement as possible. We're inviting you to be the change and help bring a community-powered progressive change machine to life. Details are at tyt.com/change. If you're a member, thank you. We need you to remain so. If you're one of the thousands of viewers out there who's not a member yet, the time has come for you to join now. We need you more than ever. tyt.com/change.
All right, welcome back. Let me go to some of these viewer comments. They are coming in. Make sure you go to Indisputable TYT social media, follow us on social media. The YouTube page is Indisputable TYT. We broadcast live there, and you have a lot of my great content, a lot of my debates, some of my interviews. Make sure you join us there, all right? Indisputable TYT on YouTube. Rebecca Cohen Dragon says, I got some Ben and Jerry's in the freezer and strawberries in the fridge, just waiting for that sweet vanilla and red sauce. Oh, damn, now I'm horny. Oh, that was good. Okay, Janet, AKA Gemstar Dragon, says their flavors look amazing and I don't want to be a diabetic anymore. Got to be careful with Ben and Jerry's. Me too _ appeared unapologetic about their views, and delicious ice cream is a dangerous combination. You're right. You can take over the world with that. That's a winning combo. Terry Barrio says we need more Ben, and next time he brings ice cream for everyone. Yeah. Dragon Penny says, okay, I'm running out to get more B&J ice cream. Love this guy. All right. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Bullpen. In the Bullpen today, I have Josh Bernstein. Josh Bernstein is host of the Josh Bernstein Uncensored Show, an American conservative talk show that airs daily. He's also known for his prior show on YouTube called The Josh Bernstein Show. Josh, welcome to Indisputable.
Great to be on the program with you.
Let me start by asking you about your views on Black Lives Matter. You have called Black Lives Matter a terrorist organization. Do you stand by that?
I certainly do. We have to look at the founding of Black Lives Matter. It was founded by Asians for Black Lives, which was run by a communist by the name of Pam Tao Lee. We also have to look at the fact of Alex Tom, which was part of the CPA, not a certified public accountant, folks, the Chinese Progressive Association. These were folks that were in contact with Alicia Garza and Patrisse Cullors. As a matter of fact, Alicia Garza and Alex Tom were activists together at UC San Diego, which is where they met. And they kind of worked with Liberation Front, Netroots, and a bunch of other organizations to start the riots in Ferguson. So if we're looking at where they come from, as well as their own words, as Patrisse Cullors has said herself, that we are indeed trained Marxists. Well, if we have Marxism and communism in the United States of America, I would consider that to be adversarial to the US Constitution. So yes,
well,
I would
that's
agree
interesting.
with that.
That is really interesting because what you just described was not terrorism. Do you know the definition of terrorism, Josh?
Sure, yeah.
What is
terrorism is somebody that incites violence, mayhem, murder for political reasons and gain.
So let me ask you this question, and that's very close to the definition. Are members of the KKK terrorists?
I would say so, absolutely. Yeah. They were founded by the Democrats, let's not forget that either.
Oh, they were founded by Dixiecrats, and those Dixiecrats are Republicans today. And I guarantee you, if you took a poll, 100% of the KKK Ku Klux Klan members would be Republicans and Trump supporters. So let's be very clear about who they are today, right? Today,
okay, so the history doesn't matter, right?
And I don't give a damn about the history. I'm a black man.
The fact
first.
that the Republican Party was founded on the anti-slavery platform.
Josh, let me be very clear, brother. Let me be very clear with you. I don't play them games. Racist Democrats exist. Listen to me, brother. Racist Democrats exist today. They existed then. Okay. Racist Republicans exist today. They existed then. But there is no coincidence that the KKK endorsed your guy for president. You don't have a problem with that?
First of all, if you're talking about David Duke.
Oh, I'm not just talking about David Duke. I'm not just talking about David Duke.
And Trump obviously did not accept his endorsement.
But you don't find it problematic that groups that you would call terrorist organizations like the KKK, who have engaged in murder and mayhem, who are listed as a murderous group, and even you yourself say should be denounced, you don't find it problematic that they are endorsing the people that you support?
Well, how many times have we had Biden be endorsed by the Communist Party USA? How many others? Barack Obama, how many times has he been endorsed by communists and
Marxists? You want to compare the Communist Party?
Endorses who.
Think about what you're saying. The Communist
Party.
We can't
control who endorses
who.
The
Communist Party
want to go. Let's go
represents the Communist Party represents an adversarial political ideology to that of capitalism. I understand that, but to somehow compare the Communist Party or communism as a political, socio-economic ideology to that of murdering ass KKK members makes absolutely no sense.
How do you separate the two? If they both believe in Karl Marx and they both believe in communism, which is complete control and totalitarianism for that matter, how do you separate the two? You can't.
Well, in your mind, I know in your mind, somehow individuals that subscribe to communism or those that hold the ideology of communism up high, that they are the same as a KKK member. It doesn't make sense to most people, but I know it makes sense to you. I learned before the show I only have a few minutes with you because you have a hard out at a certain time. So let me bring you to this point. Police reform. Police reform. Okay. Are you for police reform?
Depends on what that police reform is. If you're talking about defunding the police, in which New York cut 45, they cut 12 million. 45,000 fewer arrests in New York, which was a 58% homicide increase. Chicago has 31,000 less arrests, and they have a 65%. So yes, if you're going to cut the police like Ted Wheeler did, for instance, in Portland, Oregon, which by the way was ablaze 150 nights in a row or whatever it was, you're going to see a rise in violent crime and homicide. Clearly, every single city that is run by liberal Democrats has the higher crime rates and they have the higher murder rates, and it all coincides with cutting the police.
No, it doesn't.
Budget.
That's a lie. That's not true at all.
It's not a lie. It's actually true. FBI,
brother, you told us you only have a few minutes. So let me go ahead and give you. Let me go ahead and give you the other stats, obviously, that you are not familiar with.
Scholars.org. Is that where we're going here?
No, sir. I'm going to go to Marilyn Mosby. Marilyn Mosby, who decided to.
A good one from Baltimore.
It's a great one, brother. And I encourage you to do some research and educate yourself. Marilyn Mosby, during COVID-19, decided to not prosecute crimes of survival anymore or petty crimes. She was told by every member of law enforcement and every executive in law enforcement that crime would increase in her jurisdiction. It did not, sir. That's a damn lie.
It actually increased 55%.
Sir, it actually went down
28%. You are correct.
Sir, I'm going to give you the real facts. In her jurisdiction, and you can find this through 2 university studies, as well as an article that was printed based on those studies of crime stats in Baltimore. Not only did she decrease crime, violent crime went down by double digits in her jurisdiction. Also, arrests went down. And they were able to connect individuals who needed social rehabilitation, such as those that were dealing with alcohol addiction, drug addiction, or mental health disorders. They were able to connect them to help, and it decreased everything around them. And now that jurisdiction has engaged in that practice full time. She is now being praised by members of law enforcement. Let me take you to Ithaca, New York. Ithaca, New York, they did a survey. In this survey, Josh, it came out to the conclusion that 51% of 911 calls did not even require a cop. It required a social worker. So
a social worker.
Council,
please put that gun and knife down. We don't want you to stab that person, or we'll be very mad at you.
Josh,
give me a break.
Give
me a break.
Josh.
The police are vilified in America in urban cesspool cities.
Brother, your privilege
and therefore,
don't work
what happens?
On this show.
Crime increases. Correct? Okay. And by the way, your
privilege don't work here. You're yapping, you're bumping your gums, nobody can hear you. Your privilege don't work here, brother. So let me be very clear. Ithaca, New York said, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna hire individuals who actually are trained as social workers, since that's what our community says they need. Ithaca, New York has engaged in reimagined policing. Here's something else that has happened. In Chicago, you have more cops than ever before. They continue to hire more cops. These cops have not been able to arrest themselves out of socioeconomic dysfunction. Those cops are not creating more arrests, and they're only solving 2% of the crimes. That's a study that just got released. So I encourage you to look up those stats when you get a moment. Here's how you actually combat crime. If your city or county says that they are hiring more cops, your city and county, they have failed you, because all they're saying is they have no idea how to deal with the underlying issues of criminality in your county, in your city. How do you tackle that? You tackle that by looking at what causes the crime. Crimes of survival, poverty, drug addiction, alcohol addiction, whatever it may be. Now, if you're not facing that problem, you're going to continue to hire more cops and not actually get the crime issue under control. All right? You have fun? You can unmute yourself now. Josh, go ahead, unmute yourself. I can't hear you, Josh. You can unmute yourself. You know how to hit the mute button? You know how to unmute yourself? Just hit the same button. He can't figure it out. All right, we'll give him some time. Can you figure it out, Josh?
Okay, there you go. You there?
Yeah. So
I'm
Josh,
not sure what happened. I apologize for that.
Here's the thing, Josh. Josh, listen to me, man. Seriously. If I was on your show, I would not overtalk you. I understand that if I'm on your show, you are part debater, part moderator. You can
come on my show anytime you want.
I don't give a damn about your show, and I don't want to come on your show. What you have said about black people and Black Lives Matter being a terrorist organization, when they are the reason why cops have been put on notice, they are the reason why there is a semblance of justice happening in the criminal justice system. Oh, come on, man, really?
I'm not. I'm an ideologue. There's a huge difference, buddy. Huge difference. How you envision the world with you in it, and what you see in your world is very different than saying that someone, because they're black or white or Hispanic or green or purple or glow in the dark, is an issue. I am not racist. I'm an ideologue.
You said you're not racist. That's fine. That's what you say on the record. That's fine. Do you believe? Are you a Christian individual?
I am not. I'm 100% Jewish, and I'm a huge supporter of Christianity and Christians, because I understand that if the you know what hit the fan in America, it wouldn't be the liberal Jews that would be protecting this country. It would be the evangelical Christians and the Christian right.
You mean the evangelical Christians?
The evangelical Christians that support Israel, of course, and make sure that our allies are safe.
I can go into 1,000 directions with that, but you don't have any issues with Israel.
We are a Judeo-Christian nation, whether you like it or not, buddy.
We're not a Judeo-Christian nation. Where is that in the Constitution? Where?
Are we not a Judeo-Christian nation?
Where is that in the Constitution? That's the founding document.
Constitution or not, that's our founding principles and values.
No, it's not. No, it's not. The founding fathers, many of them were deists, brother.
Okay, let me ask you this: is the Constitution a living, breathing document?
Yes, of course it is.
Changed over time?
Of course it is.
No, it should not be.
Why do we have amendments?
Law.
Why do we have amendments?
See, that's just the way the left looks at things.
Why do we have amendments?
Relative, cultural relativism. How wonderful!
Oh gosh, man, you so full
you're not going to get there, buddy. Trust me.
Do you know why the Constitution has amendments or not? Do you know? Do you know at all?
Professor. Am I the professor know-it-all? No, I'm not.
But you just said the Constitution is not a living document. The Constitution said I was 3/5 of a man. You believe that?
Yes, Democrats told you that.
You believe that? You believe I'm 3/5 of a man?
Democrats also passed Jim Crow laws.
This is a real simple question.
And don't forget, blacks would never even had the right to vote if it wasn't for the civil rights.
I am 3/5 of a man.
Republicans. As the Democrats out there,
that's how racist you are, brother. You can't even answer a simple ass question.
I can answer the question.
I'm 3/5 of a man according to the Constitution.
Of course you're not 3/5 of a man.
And on that, brother, I'll let you go.
Of course you're not.
You being on the board.
You're a human being.
I appreciate it.
And you know what? The folks that cry racist the most are the ones on the left.
Silly.
There's nothing silly about it.
Listen, I want to bring you back on the show, but you told us. You told us you had a heart out. Can I continue to debate you, or you got to go?
Let me see.
Damn that next interview, man. Let's keep this going.
We should have had more time. I agree. I could probably do another 5 minutes before the. Let me
bring up some additional stats to you about police reform. 96% of Americans believe police reform needs to happen. 58%. They believe it needs to be dramatic. 51% of Republicans believe police reform needs to happen ASAP. One of the realities of police reform is qualified immunity. It needs to go. Do you understand qualified immunity? And what's your stance on qualified immunity?
My stance on police reform in general is the fact that we need more police officers on the beat, on the street,
you don't know what
protecting our neighborhoods, not less, okay?
Okay, so that's your answer to a question.
Qualified immunity or any other thing, the bottom line is, should we have people be victims of police brutality? Of course not. I don't see that at all. But it's just amazing that we have Ashley Babbitt, who was murdered 6 months ago, and yet we still don't have the name of the person. But yet every single time somebody who is white that kills a black individual, we know the name of that police officer that day.
We know that terrorists.
Isn't that terrible?
We know that terrorists decided.
The police are not the terrorists. The police are not the problem. Are there bad apples in every bunch? Of course there are.
We know that terrorists, they decided to
you can't
go on the Capitol property and commit acts of crime. Now,
Professor,
let me bring it to Chicago. Let me bring it to Chicago because you said something that I want to analyze.
Go ahead, because I have Chicago's information as well.
Chicago, they have engaged in more cops, more arrests, more fighting crime. But here's what has happened. They solved 2% of the crimes in Chicago. They have had an over-bloviated police budget. The money in Chicago has not equated to a decrease in the socioeconomic patterns that lead to the crime.
Well, who runs Chicago? That's why they call it Crook County.
You just want to go back to politics of it. Explain to me why hiring more cops does not get the outcome you said it should get. Tell me.
Chicago made 31,000 fewer arrests, but saw a homicide rate increase by 65%. Those are crime bureau statistics from the FBI. Now, unless you don't believe the FBI, I don't know what to tell you.
Wait a minute, go back to that stat, brother, because I know the stat.
Let's talk about Crook County, Illinois.
Let's talk about the stat you just brought up.
Okay.
That decrease in arrest happened when they hired more police officers who decided not to do their damn job out of protest to the local politicians. So you literally had more cops on the beat than ever before. You had more money in their budget than ever before, but you had cops calling in with the blue flu, not doing their damn job that they were sworn to do. So you had less arrest in that city, and you don't hold those cops accountable for that?
I'm telling you right now, this was the Crime Bureau statistics from the FBI.
Come on, man, I just gave you the context for those stats.
From the Fascist Bureau of Intimidation.
You had more cops than ever before, and they could not arrest themselves nor police themselves out of the dysfunction of criminality in Chicago. More cops does not equate to less crime. Do you get my point?
So, okay, let's throw it back to you then. How would you solve police reform in the United States of America without defunding the people that are protecting our neighborhoods? Go ahead.
And I'm glad you posed that question, brother. So
hang on. What? Give me.
Okay, number one.
Hey, can you call me back in 5 minutes?
Yeah, call him back. Yeah, he's to get. Yeah, let's get this.
Sorry, this is too good.
All right, you're absolutely correct. So I'm glad you posed that question. Here's what has to happen. Number one, you have to take defunding the police seriously as a reimagined tool for policing. Here's what's not working. Wait a minute, brother. Listen, you asked me a question. I'm going to tell you how it works. 2% of major crimes get solved within the first 2 years of any police precinct. That's just a national average, okay? 2%. Now, name any government body that had that type of performance stat that we wouldn't question. Why would we not question the effectiveness of a 2% solve rate for major crimes? We should question that. So
we should question that. Why do you think that is the case?
No, you posed the question to me, and
I am, and I'll answer it, or you can answer it. We can both answer it for that matter.
The majority of arrests that happen in any jurisdiction is connected to poverty, mental health, alcohol use or addiction, or drug use or addiction. If you're not actually trying to remedy those underlying issues in your local community, you are going to continue to permeate the same ecosystem, the same cycle of crime. That's why defund the police is really about taking another look at how we do policing. And if your city has 30% to 50% of the calls, your 911 calls, are not 911 or police officer required, why do we send a cop to every single 911 call when the police officers are saying, we aren't trained to do this? We need more training, or we need qualified individuals to deal with folks that have a mental health disorder or something else is going on. That is common sense, brother. There's nothing wrong with that. And
there is some common sense in there. However, why wouldn't you send an armed police officer to a domestic disturbance call, regardless of whether or not you think it's going to be peaceful or not? The bottom line is things can escalate pretty quickly. Tempers can get out of control, things can happen, people could resist arrest. You're always going to need backup, and that backup is in the form of a handgun. Now that doesn't mean that you whip out your gun immediately and want to shoot first. Of course not.
Name something for me. Name one city that has been able to arrest themselves out of a criminal or crime problem.
I think there's been several cities.
Just name one.
Okay. I'll give you for instance, Arizona. Okay.
Arizona.
I'm talking Gilbert, Arizona. I'm talking
Gilbert.
There's so many. Gosh, Chandler, Arizona.
They just arrested themselves out of socioeconomic dysfunction.
For instance.
Yeah. What are the stats?
Colorado.
What are the stats, brother?
Stats right here, right offhand.
But if you really believe this happens, you should know at least one city where it's happened.
Guns, you have law and order. Where you don't have guns, you don't have law and order. It's pretty simple.
Let me get this right.
To figure that out. Okay.
You're saying. If cops have guns, or you have a lot of people with guns,
S-hole city in America that is run by Democrats, that is infested with crime.
So you're calling cities
infested with drugs, unwed
and you're not racist. You're not racist, but you're using S-hole cities to describe what? Urban cities?
Many cities that have high crime rates.
S-hole cities?
Huh?
They are S-hole cities to you?
There are many of them out there that have crime issues, absolutely.
And they're S-hole cities,
and they all have one common denominator, Professor. They're run by Democrats, okay?
So let me clarify something for you.
That's the reality of the situation.
Let me clarify
when Republicans run cities, there's lower crime, there's more opportunity.
You are one of the most extreme individuals as it relates to your rhetoric, and that's fine. You're an extreme guy. But let's be very clear about what's happening in cities,
I just
jurisdictions.
call them like I see them.
Okay. Are you able to listen to my rebuttal or no? Can you do that? You can stand yourself to do that?
Hey, go ahead.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. So in the cities that you're referring to, I want you to be reminded that urban cities typically have different socioeconomic challenges than rural cities. But let me be very clear about states that have the highest crime. 8 out of the 9 states that have the highest crime are in fact run by Republicans. 8 out of the 9 states that are the poorest are run by Republicans. 8 out of the 9 states that do the lowest on the educational chart for K through 12 education are all run by Republicans. My point to you is this, brother. You keep going back to a partisan angle, and I can play that game with you all day. But referring to American cities as S-hole cities is something that shows shows your racism. No, he referred to black nations as S-hole nations. That's what he did.
Well,
that's
I don't
racist.
think that that's appropriate. Because I'm not saying
racist.
that all black
damn it being appropriate is racist, correct?
Are terrible. They're
not. It is racist, right?
Huh? No, I don't think the president is a racist.
But
how can you say the president is a racist when he was the first president to pass the First Step Act?
I'm glad you brought that up too. All right, let's talk about the First Step Act since you want to go there.
3.9% unemployment rate for black
Let's talk about the First Step Act. Let's go back. Come on, man. Let's walk this back. Let me have a response to that, brother.
Go ahead.
The First Step Act, which affected 0.02% of the black population, by the way, not even 1%. The First Step Act was a continuation of the Obama Act, which was made retroactive. President Obama should have done that, and he did not. I have criticized him for that since day one. But let's be very clear about what the Trump administration did. They defunded the Pell Grant, where individuals in prison who could have access to college funding did not. The greatest way to stop recidivism is to make sure you have an educated man or woman when they get out of prison. They discontinued that program.
It depends on what that education is. If they're going to go to their colleges and get indoctrinated by left-wing Marxist professors, probably not a good education.
They also decided to defund halfway houses that helps an individual translate and transfer back into society. Here's what else the Justice Department did. They sent out a memo saying that we will prosecute to the fullest extent of the law anyone who is arrested for a non-violent drug offense. So while on one hand, he has this policy that says, okay, we're going to impact less than 1% of the black population, while at the same time having other policies that impact 10 to 15% of the population, but telling you that's reform. That's not reform, damn it. That's moving backwards. And a person like you who reads enough should have seen between the lines on something like that.
I have seen what I have seen. I've seen the lowest unemployment rate for black Americans in history. I've seen the lowest Hispanic unemployment rate. I've seen more women working, less people on welfare. And damn it, my phone
those are misnomer numbers. A U3 rating system compared to a U6, but my producers are telling me I'm out of time. I would love to have you back.
Give me 1 second, 1 second, 1 second.
No, he can go. You can go now. Go ahead and do your other interview.
We got to do this again, Professor.
I hope so.
You're a good man.
Well,
getting into the cage with me. God bless you.
God bless you, man. We got Deep Dive next, all right? Indisputable. Take care of yourself, take care of the planet, and remember, the truth is always indisputable.